Chapter 12:13. Li Tsubing looked at him with a smile and shook his head. Clearly, he was really afraid. Deng Datong frowned. Do you think he'll really kill me? Who knows? Deng Datong sighed and shook his head. No, he won't dare. Then let's see if he dares. Don't scare me. Ha ha. Li Tsubing laughed and shook his head. Looks like you're scared. Nonsense. Wouldn't you be scared if you were him? He who has not done anything shameful is not afraid of ghosts. Li Tsubing shook his head. I think you should reflect on yourself. Don't keep thinking about taking advantage of others. It's not a long-term solution. Let's talk after we get through this. I think you should just give up. Li Tsubing shook his head. Think about it. If you force him to help you, he'll definitely fall out with you. I'm not willing to give up just like that. Deng Datong sighed. Then wait until you're dead, Li Tsubing said impatiently. Let's not talk about anything else. Let's talk after you get through this. Deng Datong thought about his injuries and frowned. It was impossible for him to recover on his own. If he wanted to recover as soon as possible, he had to find help from others. However, he had taken too many advantages and lost his social standing. At this crucial moment, they would not help him in his hour of need. They would only kick him when he was down. All right, think about it yourself. I have something to do at the Divine Light Basilica. After that, I'll go down the mountain. You can stay for a while. I'll be back in 10 days. Li Tsubing stood up and chuckled. 10 days. Deng Datong was anxious when he heard that. He could not calm down. Li Tsubing laughed and left the courtyard. Deng Datong was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood. Chu Li suddenly appeared at Snow Lunar Pavilion. In the waterside pavilion on the Snow Crescent Lake, Suru's waterside pavilion was still there. He appeared in Suru's waterside pavilion, not Li Hanyan's waterside pavilion directly. He was worried that something awkward would happen. After all, men and women were different. His divine mirror quickly scanned Li Hanyan's house. Li Hanyan was not there. He furrowed his brows. He did not want to enter Snow Lunar Pavilion with his true appearance. He did not want to expose his relationship with Du Feng. Li Hanyan knew her identity, so she was not afraid. Using the omniscient mirror, he soon found Li Hanyan in the martial arts field. She was practicing her swordsmanship alone in a corner. Her swordsmanship was swift and fierce, and she was filled with murderous intent. The surroundings were bustling with activity. Everyone was practicing their own martial arts, and no one dared to approach Li Hanyan. It was not because Li Hanyan's martial arts was powerful, but because her swordplay was too murderous. Anyone who got close to her would feel as if they were placed in a frigid ice cellar. Their entire body was chilled, and they were chilled from the bottom of their hearts. Chu Li shook his head and smiled. It seemed that Li Hanyan's authority in the Snow Lunar Pavilion was growing by the day. Li Hanyan sensed something and suddenly stopped her swordplay. She glanced at her waterside pavilion before sheathing her sword and drifting away. The people around her unconsciously heaved a sigh of relief and looked at her graceful back. A moment later, Li Hanyan fluttered over to Suru's waterside pavilion. She gently pushed the door open and entered. Instantly, a smile broke out on her frosty oval face. Chu Li waved his hand. Li Hanyan gracefully approached him, her faint fragrance wafting through the air. "Brother Chu." Chu Li looked at her from head to toe. Other than becoming more beautiful and radiant, the chill around her was getting thicker, and her cultivation level had improved greatly. "Brother Chu, why are you here?" Li Hanyan smiled sweetly. Chu Li shook his head. "Look at the trouble you've caused." "How did I cause trouble?" Li Hanyan scoffed. Chu Li said, "You killed a patrol from the Holy Church of Light." "You know," Li Hanyan stuck out her tongue and scoffed, "he's really blind." "Do you know how big of a mess you've caused?" Chu Li said, Li Hanyan scoffed. It's just a patrol. What's the big deal? Then do you know how many patrols the Holy Church of Light has? Chu Li shook his head. The Holy Church of Light won't just let this go. What are you going to do? I'll just deal with whatever comes my way, Li Hanyan said. Chu Li said, they'll send 2 or more patrols. Can you handle it alone? Hee hee, I still have you, Brother Chu. Li Hanyan smiled sweetly. Chu Li broke into laughter. No wonder you're so daring. Li Hanyan smiled. Will they really send so many people? Yes, Chu Li said. Based on their style of doing things, they won't let this go. Come on, I was just thinking of killing a few more to let everyone know that Snow Lunar Pavilion isn't a pushover. Li Hanyan smiled coldly. Chu Li frowned. There are still people out there who are ready to make trouble. I've never given up. Li Hanyan sneered. They're all bastards who won't give up until they see their coffins. I can't wait to kill them all. You still chant scriptures every day, right? Of course. Seems like it's no use. Your bloodlust is getting stronger. Chu Li shook his head and pondered for a moment. I'll pass you a scripture later. You'll chant this instead. Brother Li, there's no contradiction between chanting scriptures and killing. Li Hanyan smiled. I kill to save people. My heart is full of mercy. Chu Li broke into laughter and shook his head. If you want to continue killing, you might as well go to the Fu dynasty. I heard that there are many masters in the Fu dynasty. Li Hanyan frowned. I'm afraid I won't be able to move an inch. Chu Li said, with your current cultivation level, it's fine to be careful. If I go to the Fu dynasty and the Holy Church of Light can't find me, will they kill our disciples? Li Hanyan was slightly worried. Chu Li said, then let the whole world know and let the Holy Church of Light hunt you down in the Fu dynasty. Why? Li Hanyan was puzzled. She felt that Chu Li must have a deeper meaning. Chu Li said, the Holy Church of Light is powerful. Every move you make in the Ji dynasty will be heard, but it's different in the Fu dynasty. They don't have much influence in the Fu dynasty, so I can secretly help you kill them. He had a weak connection with the Holy Church of Light. Ever since Li Rulan's death, it was as if his connection with the Holy Church of Light had been cut off. Son Mingyue had been suppressing him to train him, but he did not appreciate it at all. Moreover, Son Mingyue did not care about personal feelings. She only cared about the Holy Church of Light. She would do anything that was beneficial to the Holy Church of Light and would not do anything that was not beneficial. She had the mentality of an empress. Chu Li hated this the most. It was the same for the Ji dynasty's emperor, Long Wufeng, and it was the same for other people. He wanted to beat them to the ground to vent his anger. If he could help Li Hanyan kill the disciples of the Holy Church of Light, he would be delighted. As long as he did not expose his identity, the more he killed, the better. All right, I'll leave tomorrow, Li Hanyan said with a smile. She could almost see herself killing the Holy Church of Light's masters with a swing of her sword. Her eyes shone brighter and brighter, and she could not wait to leave now. Chu Li smiled and nodded. If anything goes wrong, call me immediately. Okay. Li Hanyan nodded vigorously. Chapter 12:14. P.S. Thank you for Get Unhappy Boss for supporting us again. Only then did Chu Li feel completely relieved. Brotherly, do you want to see my sword technique? Li Hanyan asked hurriedly when she saw that he was about to leave. Chu Li pondered for a moment and nodded. Your swordsmanship is already very good. You just need to continue to improve it. Moreover, as you continue to fight, your understanding will become deeper and deeper. What suits you the best is the best. The same set of swordsmanship can only be used differently by different people. You can't force things. Yes, Li Hanyan nodded and said, I understand, but I still want Brother Li to give me some pointers. All right, Chu Li nodded. He reached out and grabbed Li Hanyan's wrist. He could feel the firmness and elasticity of her wrist even through the sleeve. Then, the two of them suddenly disappeared. Chu Li and him appeared on the island of the House of High Dukes. On this small island, he was the most relaxed. He did not need to be on guard against anyone. Otherwise, even if he was in King An's imperial residence, he would subconsciously be on guard. It was not Li Hanyan's first time here. She would occasionally come here to play. She glanced around and saw Xue Ling. She smiled at her. Xue smiled back at her. "You two can spar more," Chu Li said with a smile. Xue Ling said, "Sister Li's cultivation level has improved greatly. I can't compare to you." Ever since she had become a grandmaster, she no longer had an ardent desire to cultivate. She was often tied up with miscellaneous matters. Compared to cultivating, she preferred to help Chu Li with trivial matters, including the matters of the Glory's Will courtyard. Li Hanyan laughed. "I don't deserve it." "Yes, Xue Ling has indeed been slacking off recently." Chu Li nodded. "But her foundation is pretty good. She cultivated the Crescent Cryptic, which was the most difficult to cultivate. The beginning was difficult, but the later stages were much faster. With Chu Li's help, she had built a solid foundation. Now, even if she did not focus on cultivating, her cultivation speed was not slow. In fact, it was much faster than the average person." Xue Ling smiled. "Master, do I still need to continue cultivating?" "Of course. There's no end to cultivation. If you don't advance, you'll fall behind." Chu Li nodded and said, "You should focus your mind. Everything else is not worth mentioning compared to cultivation." "Yes," Xue Ling answered crisply. The three of them appeared in an empty space in the middle of the flower bed. It was the place where they cultivated. Chu Li said, "Let's learn from each other. You'll have to figure out how to improve it yourself." "Yes," Li Hanyan answered excitedly. Chu Li had always adopted this method of imparting knowledge to her. Most of the time, it was to inspire her instead of directly imparting martial arts to her, so that she could comprehend something of her own. Chu Li extended his hand, and Xue Ling handed him a long sword. Li Hanyan unsheathed her sword and shouted, "Watch my sword!" Her body moved like a ghost and instantly appeared in front of Chu Li, the tip of her sword already stabbing towards him. Chu Li swung his sword lightly. Li Hanyan's long sword bounced off, and she stabbed again, unwilling to admit defeat. She felt that the strength of the sword wasn't great, but it was just right. It was such an exquisite strike that could turn the tide of the battle at a crucial moment. Of course, she would not let it go, so she continued to strike. Chu Li swung his sword again. Li Hanyan's sword was deflected once again. She was defenseless. Great sword technique. She let out a delicate shout and continued to strike with her sword. Her sword momentum became even faster as she wanted to see if she could break this exquisite sword. Chu Li still only used this one sword technique. No matter how Li Hanyan changed her moves, he could always deflect it easily. No matter how exquisite her moves were, she could not perform them. In one breath, she stabbed more than 20 times. Li Hanyan said helplessly, "Brother Li, is there a way to break this sword technique?" "Yes." Chu Li smiled. "There is no martial art in the world that can't be broken. Then how do you break it? You should learn how to use it first before you break it. Then teach me." Li Hanyan said in a coquettish tone, "You can figure it out yourself." Chu Li shook his head. "I'll teach you. You'll only learn one move. Actually, all the moves can be used like this." Li Hanyan pondered and continued to strike. She struck more than 100 times in one breath, but she still could not get the hang of it. Chu Li patiently struck with his sword. Every strike was effortless, as if it was done casually. Li Hanyan felt like she was a child swinging a sword in front of Chu Li. All the moves were full of flaws and could not withstand a single blow. This made her feel discouraged. Initially, she thought that after such a long period of hard work, she could close the gap between her and Chu Li. Now, it seemed that the gap was getting farther and farther away. Chu Li did not say a word. He only struck with his sword, hoping that she could comprehend it. If she could comprehend it, her swordsmanship would be upgraded to another level. With this energy in her sword, her power would increase tremendously. Even if she encountered someone with a stronger inner energy than her, she would still have a chance of winning. Doing fluttered to the divine light basilica and curtsied. Sun Mingwe glanced at her. "What's the matter? You're in such a hurry." "Saint, something bad has happened," Du Ying hurriedly said. "Tell me." Sun Mingwe put down the dossier and looked at her. "What is it?" "Senior brother Deng is badly injured," Du Ying said. Sun Mingwe frowned. "It's not normal to be injured. What's wrong? But isn't he going to kill Li Hanyan soon?" Chapter 12:15. Sun Mingwe shook her head and sighed. She got up from the armchair and walked down the stairs. She paced back and forth as she pondered, recalling Chu Li's every move. She could tell that Chu Li was up to no good. His inner energy was strange, but she did not expect Chu Li's cultivation level to be so high that he could injure Deng Datong. Deng Datong had only himself to blame. He had used all his tricks, but it was all for naught. Of course, she knew that Chu Li agreed so readily because he was certain that Deng Datong could not be cured. Zhao Dai was extremely arrogant and unruly. If he did not want to do something, it would be useless no matter how hard he tried to force him to do it. It was not that he did not punish him, but it did not work. The people were not afraid of death. So why should they be afraid of death? When Li Rulin was alive, it was still fine. At least there was someone who could suppress him and make him obedient. Moreover, there were still weaknesses that could be exploited. However, once Li Rulin died, he no longer had any weaknesses. She shook her head and sighed. She still could not come up with any good ideas. However, to men, the most important method was to seduce them with their beauty. Since ancient times, heroes had always been vulnerable to the charms of beauties. It was not just any hero, but almost all heroes could not overcome the charms of beauties. Her eyes flickered as she thought about the women in the church. The disciples of the Holy Church of Light were all carefully selected. Most of the male disciples were handsome, while most of the female disciples were beautiful. It was rare to see someone as ugly as Chu Li. Heaven and earth often loved one person and focused all of their strengths on one person. Beauty and wisdom often coexisted. Those with outstanding aptitude often had outstanding looks as well. However, there were many beautiful female disciples in the church, but not many of them could move Zhao Dai. It was not because they were not beautiful enough, but because they could not enter his heart. She sighed and shook her head. It was all because of Li Rulin. Zhao Dai's heart was completely shut down because of her death. Du Ying came in quietly. "Saint, why are you back?" Sun Mingwei asked. Du Ying said softly, "I think senior brother Deng fainted." Although she hated Deng Datong, she was worried about him. If he really died, junior brother Zhao would be the one in trouble. He would be punished for killing a fellow disciple and might even be crippled of his martial arts. He had already killed an altar master. If he committed the same crime again, his punishment would be increased, and he might even be expelled from the Holy Church. It was too much of a loss for him to do this for Deng Datong. He fainted. Sun Mingwei frowned and said, "Is his injury very serious?" "Yes, I'm afraid his life is in danger." "Why don't you go and take a look?" Du Ying carefully observed her expression. Sun Mingwei snorted and said, "Fine, let's go and take a look." Doing smiled and quickly said, "Saint, please follow me." The two of them exited the Divine Light Basilica and soon arrived at Li Tsubing's courtyard. There, they saw Deng Datong lying on the bed. Deng Datong was already unconscious on the bed, motionless, as if he was dead. His heart would only beat once, and his chest would only rise and fall after a long time. "Saint, is senior brother Deng all right?" Doing asked hurriedly. "Yes, I won't die." Sun Mingwe snorted. "That's good." Ing patted her perky chest, which trembled a little. Sun Mingwe looked at her magnificent breasts and looked at her beautiful face thoughtfully. "Saint." Ing blushed under her stare. Even a woman would feel awkward being stared at there, even if she was the saint. "Yes, it's nothing. I'm thinking about something." Sun Mingwe carefully looked at Ing and nodded to herself. Ing looked at her suspiciously, but did not think much of it. She stared at Deng Datong and asked, "Saint, are you going to treat senior brother Deng's injury?" "No." Sun Mingwe shook her head. "That's good." Ing patted her perky chest again. Sun Mingwe extended her palm and gently patted Deng Datong's chest. After a few hits, her palms were flat in the air, and she gently sucked Deng Datong 1/2 meter away. Deng Datong's body floated up and turned in the air. He floated in the air facing the sky. Sun Mingwe patted him a few more times before he floated down. Sun Mingwe retracted her palm and said calmly, "Seems like you're very concerned about Zhao Dei." "No." Ing quickly shook her head. Sun Mingwe snorted. "You think I can't tell?" Ing quickly said, "No, Saint, I just can't stand senior brother Deng taking advantage of junior brother Zhao. Junior brother Zhao is too pitiful." Sun Mingwe laughed. You're the first to say that he's pitiful." Ing said, "Senior brother Deng schemed against him, and the saint suppressed him. He made so many contributions, but he could only be a branch leader in a remote place and was sent far away." "Gale City is not a remote place." Sun Mingwe said, "You're too biased." Ing smiled embarrassedly. She suddenly remembered that Gale City was also a famous city and not a remote place. However, she felt that it was very far away from Great Light Peak, even though they could reach it in a day. Sun Mingwe said, "Forget it. Go to Gale City again and see if it's biased." "Saint, are you going to punish junior brother Zhao?" "Yes, he hurt Deng Datong so badly. Of course he has to be punished. This can't be blamed on junior brother Zhao, right? He was the one who hurt him. How can we not blame him?" Sun Mingwe said. Ing frowned and said, "I think it's very likely that senior brother Deng did this on purpose. Junior brother Zhao didn't hurt him, but he used it as a pretext." "You're quite smart." Sun Mingwe shook her head and said, "Go." "Yes." Ing nodded helplessly. "Oh." Deng Datong slowly opened his eyes. Sun Mingwe glanced at him. Of course, Deng Datong's little tricks could not fool her. He had woken up a long time ago, but he kept his eyes closed and pretended to be unconscious. It was obvious that he had woken up when he heard that she wanted to punish Zhao Dei. Deng Datong said, "Saint, you really can't blame junior brother Zhao." "Oh, you don't blame him?" Sun Mingwe's tone was light as if there was no emotion in it. Deng Datong shook his head and said, "I blame myself for not being skilled enough. I'm really ashamed. As a senior brother, I can't compare to a junior brother. I deserve this." Sun Mingwe said, "If that's the case, you blame yourself." "Yes." Deng Datong nodded slowly. Sun Mingwe said, "If you can think that way, I didn't think too highly of you." "Thank you, Saint." Deng Datong gave a fist salute with difficulty. "All right, since you put it that way, I won't punish him." Sun Mingwe said. Deng Datong let out a strange smile, that was indescribably strange. He felt that he had shot himself in the foot again. Since the saint wanted to punish him, she should have done him a favor no matter what, no matter who pleaded on his behalf. Why wouldn't he do her a favor and show his magnanimity? He never thought that the saint would be so out of character and accept his plea. She even changed her mind and did not punish Xiao Dai. He was angry and helpless at the same time. He forced himself to smile, or else the saint would definitely see through him. Du Ying secretly pursed her lips. She could feel that the saint was teasing him. It was obvious that she was using this opportunity to knock him out of his hypocrisy. She wanted him to be more honest and not play tricks in front of the saint. Take care of yourself. Let's go, Du Ying, Sun Mingyue said. Chapter 12:16. Both of them arrived at the Divine Light Basilica. Sun Mingyue sat on the armchair and looked at her quietly. Du Ying, you still have to look for Xiao Dai. Saint, Du Ying quickly called out. Sun Mingyue waved her hand. Rules are rules. Didn't I tell senior brother Deng not to punish junior brother Zhao? Du Ying said. That was just to fool him. Sun Mingyue said. Do you really think I'll let Xiao Dai off just because of what he said? Senior brother Deng is fine. Who said he's fine? Du Ying looked at her doubtfully. Sun Mingyue shook her head. Xiao Dai went too far this time. He hurt Deng Datong's foundation. Even if he recovers, he won't be able to do anything for a long time. Du Ying said that can't be, right? He didn't go easy on him. He was aiming to destroy Deng Datong's foundation. Sun Mingyue scoffed. Du Ying remained silent. It's no wonder junior brother Zhao was so ruthless. Senior brother Deng is too hateful. All right, don't. LV Bo, ruling Ka, Fu Xie Shi, Chu, Buying kidnapped, Mo, yes. Du Ying nodded and did not say anything more. She knew that if she said anything more, the saint would turn on her. She would be asking for trouble. Sun Mingyue looked thoughtful as she watched Du Ying's graceful figure leave the Divine Light Basilica. This scene seemed familiar because she had already used the honey trap once. Back then, she had used Li Rulin to restrain Xiao Dai. It was like using a rope to restrain a mad dragon. In the end, it was very effective. Now, she was going to use it again. Du Ying and Li Rulin were similar in their bones, but their appearances were different. One was mature and steady while the other was kind and had a clear distinction between love and hate. She did not hide her feelings, and it was easy for a woman like this to enter Xiao Dai's heart. Now it was up to Du Ying to break Xiao Dai's heart. If it worked, it would be much easier. She shook her head and sighed. In order to control this Xiao Dai, she had spent the most effort. Currently, it seemed like the results were the worst. She was still unable to control him completely. She could not command him as if she was her own arm. She needed a special method to control him. Fortunately, he was indeed worth it. His martial arts were outstanding, far surpassing that of an ordinary person. Although he was only a branch leader, his martial arts were not inferior to an altar leader or even a Fuwang. Moreover, he was exceptionally intelligent. People were often deceived by his appearance, thinking that he was a hot-headed person who did not know how to scheme and only knew how to use brute force. When Du Ying arrived at Gale City, Chu Li was cultivating in his own residence. Ko Chiong personally led her to the courtyard and stood there respectfully. Du Ying secretly looked at Ko Chiong. He was getting on in years. He looked like he was more than 100 years old. Chapter 12:17. Chu Li frowned. Liang Yinge, you should know Liang Yinge from the Zheng dynasty's mysterious pavilion. You've fought him before. Yes, he's very powerful, but I can't kill him. The mysterious pavilion is like the holy church of the Li dynasty to the Zheng dynasty. Although the mysterious pavilion isn't a martial arts sect, it's the most powerful department in the Zheng dynasty. Sun Mingwe nodded. Looks like the mysterious pavilion is in the way. Chu Li thought about it and shook his head. I thought the saint was going to avenge the 12th prince. It's not because of him. Sun Mingwe shook her head. It's because the mysterious pavilion is a great threat to the Holy Church. I see. Chu Li nodded. But we can't kill everyone who threatens the Holy Church, right? That'll be too much to kill. He's very powerful. Sun Mingwe said, that's why we have to eliminate him. All right, I'll go look for him, but my martial arts isn't as good as his. I don't know if I can kill him. Chu Li nodded without hesitation. You really want to go? Sun Mingwe asked. She did not expect Chu Li to agree so readily. She thought he would bargain or even fall out with her. Chu Li said, as long as I don't help Deng Datong, I don't hate other things. Very well, since you're able to kill Liang Yinga, we'll write it off. I won't trouble you again this year, so you can stay in Gale City. All right, no problem. Chu Li said, I'll send you news about Liang Yinga. Sun Mingwe said, it'll take some time to collect it. Go into isolated cultivation and improve your martial arts. Then you'll be able to kill Liang Yinga. Yes, Chu Li nodded. Sun Mingwe looked at him with satisfaction. This was how a true subordinate should act, not as unscrupulous as before. Chu Li asked, what about senior brother Deng? Don't worry about it, Sun Mingwe said. Chu Li smiled. His injury won't heal so easily. Sun Mingwe asked, what method did you use? The Earth Matrix and reincarnation scripture is full of mysteries. Once I've gradually mastered it, I can already unleash its power. He thinks that he has expelled the inner energy, but it's actually just turning it into his own inner energy. After a while, it'll turn back again. Chu Li shook his head. It'll keep going back and forth. Sun Mingwe said, Earth Matrix and reincarnation scripture. Chu Li replied, every time it spins, it'll become stronger, and his injuries will worsen as well. It's like a rolling snowball, and he won't be able to withstand it at all unless we get someone to remove his inner energy. However, I don't think it'll work without a top-notch master. It looks like we'll have to trouble you, Saint, to do it in the end. How arrogant! Sun Mingwe snorted and said, you overestimate the experts of our holy church. Any senior expert can treat this injury. Chu Li grinned and said, Saint, you can give it a try. Don't worry, you'll see soon enough, Sun Mingwe said. If he still could not deal with him, he could only cultivate and increase his cultivation level before killing him. Doing smiled. Junior brother Zhao, I'll stay here for 2 days. If there's anything you don't understand or want to understand, I'll write it down and bring it back to the saint. It won't take too long. I'll read it right away. Chu Li nodded. When he saw Doing again, he vaguely understood Sun Mingwe's intention. Sun Mingwe wanted Doing to become the second Li Rulin so that she could restrain the Zhao De that he disguised as. He shook his head secretly. He was not tempted. Falling in love in the Holy Church of Light was simply asking for trouble. Although Doing was good, he could not be too close to her. He then flipped through the dossiers. Doing did not say anything else. She sat at the side and watched Chu Li quickly flip through the dossiers. He read at the same speed as the saint, Sun Mingwe. In the blink of an eye, he finished reading one scroll, then the next. He finished reading the 2 big bags of dossiers in half a day. After reading Liang Yinga's dossiers, Chu Li frowned. Liang Yinga's origin was very mysterious, and so was his master. It was said that the Crescent Cryptic 9 Kills trial was an ancient antique study with amazing power. Moreover, the conditions to cultivate it were very harsh. He was a genius to be able to cultivate it. Such a person was favored by God, so it was not easy to kill him. Although there were many dossiers, there was still no information about his origin, so they could not find out who he was. They only recorded some of the things he did, which showed his character. When Doing saw Chu Li's serious expression, she hurriedly said, "Junior brother Zhao, is it not enough?" Chu Li shook his head. "It's useless. Then what should we do?" Doing frowned. "Can you still complete the task given by the saint?" His temperament had changed, so it was easier for him to make mistakes. There would be a glimmer of hope if Lung Jinghua made a mistake, but there would be no hope if he could not kill Liang Yinga. Du Ying returned to Gale City 7 days later and looked for Chu Li. In these 7 days, Li Hanyan had already mastered that sword technique, the art of pushing 1,000 caddies with little effort. Chu Li was in awe of her level of comprehension. She was indeed a natural swordsman. This was what he comprehended when he was cultivating the great, heaven-deriving sword and Philip Swift thunder. It was the essence of a flash of inspiration. He did not expect Li Hanyan to be able to master it in just 10 days. After sending Li Hanyan back to Snow Lunar Pavilion, he returned to Gale City and waited for Du Ying's return. Chu Li looked at the dossier and frowned. He did not say a word. The two of them were in his bedroom. Du Ying sat on a stool and stared at him without blinking. When she saw his frown, she quickly asked, "Is it still useless?" Chu Li shook his head. "I've gained something this time. I didn't expect Zhu Liang and Liang Yinga to be related." When he said that he wanted to investigate Liang Yinga's master and Zhu Liang, he did not think that the two were related. He only wanted to use Sun Mingyue's power to investigate Zhu Liang and see if he could find more clues to obtain the spirit crane technique. He did not expect that there would be a relationship between them. From the information obtained by the Holy Church of Light, the Crescent Cryptic 9 Kills trial that Liang Yinga cultivated was from Zhu Liang's wife's lineage. It seemed that finding the spirit crane technique that Zhu Liang hid was on Liang Yinga. Du Ying asked, "Are you going to take action?" Chu Li nodded. "Senior Sister Du, go back and tell the saint that I'll leave immediately." "Then be careful," Du Ying said softly. Chu Li smiled. "Don't worry, I'll run if I can't beat them." Du Ying nodded. At the foot of Ascending Dragon Mountain, Liang Yinga stood under a tree and looked up at the mountain. Behind him were 4 gray-robed elders who looked gloomy. The 4 gray-robed elders had high cultivation levels and were only slightly weaker than Liang Yinga. They stood behind Liang Yinga and shook their heads helplessly. "The formation can't be broken. It can't be broken." One of the gray-robed elders shook his head and said helplessly, "Pavilion Master, this vast cold palace is quite strange. It's not surprising that the heavenly King Palm has such abilities." Liang Yinga said. He wore a green robe and looked as handsome as jade as he looked at Ascending Dragon Mountain. The Ascending Dragon Mountain was currently shrouded in fog and could not be seen clearly. With his eyesight, he could see the peak of the mountain no matter how high it was. However, it was shrouded in fog and could not be seen. He knew that the vast cold palace was in this fog and could not be seen because it was shrouded in a formation. Relying on this formation, the vast cold palace was aloof and independent. They were not strong, but they were arrogant and caused no small amount of trouble. This was especially so for the profound pavilion, which made him extremely angry. He wanted to remove this nail and make an example out of it. However, it was not easy to deal with the vast cold palace. The huge Ascending Dragon Mountain was not only a mountain but also a mountain range. It was impossible to seal the entire mountain range and prevent people from coming out. Moreover, Ascending Dragon Mountain was rich in resources. Even if they did not come out, they would not have to worry about food and clothing. It was said that there were not many people in the vast cold palace, so their consumption was very small. It was impossible to use the method of trapping the city. He knew a little about formations, and the Zheng dynasty also had people who were proficient in formations. He sent the most powerful formation masters to break the vast cold palace's formation, but after 10 days, there was no result. Another thin gray-robed elder said, "Pavilion master, if it's really impossible, let's burn the mountain." Liang Yinga glanced at him and shook his head. The other 3 gray-robed elders shook their heads. "No, burning the mountain is too harmful, and it may not be effective. The formation master was so powerful. How could he not be prepared for this?" "I don't believe that there's anything we can do under fire," the thin gray-robed elder scoffed. Liang Yinga said, "Under a formation, burning is useless. You guys should learn about formations. Even if you can't learn, you should at least understand some basic knowledge." Yes, the 4 of them lowered their heads and agreed. Liang Yinga waved his hand and continued to stare at ascending Dragon Mountain. The other 4 shook their heads secretly. It was useless no matter how they looked at it. If they could not break it, they could not break it. According to the 2 formation masters, this formation was a strange formation that was integrated with the mountain range. For 1,000 years, it had been integrated step by step and became closer, which was why it had such power. No matter how powerful they were, they could not do anything against such a formation. "You guys go first. I'll take a look myself." Liang Yinga waved his hand. The 4 of them fist saluted and fluttered away. They wanted to enter ascending Dragon Mountain again to see if they would get lost again. As soon as the 4 of them left, Chu Li suddenly appeared in front of Liang Yinga. Chapter 12:19. Chu Li said, "Watch my blade." 2 flying blades were shot out in an instant. The blade flashed and appeared in front of him, giving him almost no time to react. Liang Yinga's senses were sharp. As the blade flashed past, it seemed like he could not avoid it. The flying blades passed through without any hindrance, leaving only an empty shadow. Chu Li frowned. The power of the light blade was strong, but it was useless against Liang Yinga. Liang Yinga's senses were too sharp. As soon as Chu Li thought about it, Liang Yinga could sense his killing intent and instantly dodge it. No matter how many blades Liang Yinga shot out, it was futile. It was hopeless. The only way to restrain his senses was to use the life and death scripture to restrain his killing intent. Even so, Liang Yinga's light body technique was outstanding. Chu Li had always been successful with his top-notch light body technique and light blade, but it was like meeting his nemesis when he met Liang Yinga. Liang Yinga's antique skills were restrained by him. More importantly, the only way to defeat him was to have a higher cultivation level, but Liang Yinga's cultivation level was higher. As a result, Liang Yinga was at a complete disadvantage and felt extremely uncomfortable. At this time, he had transformed into Zhao De and needed to hide his martial arts. He only showed the Great Light Scripture and the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture. His cultivation level could not be completely exposed either, so it was weaker than his original cultivation level. As a result, he could not do anything to Liang Yinga. It was just the light blade and the great light fist. To Liang Yinga, they were just harassment. Chu Li had the same intention. After he shot out 20 blades, he suddenly stopped and turned to leave. Liang Yinga scoffed and appeared in front of Chu Li in a flash. Chu Li swayed swiftly and moved a foot to the side to avoid his 9 kills palm energy. While Liang Yinga frowned, Chu Li was like a breeze. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in a forest and disappeared. Liang Yinga did not give up and directly chased into the forest. "Qi, Chi. Two blade flashes instantly shot out. Liang Inga felt that something was wrong and had already dodged. The blade flashes hit the pine tree behind him. Bang! The pine tree exploded. Liang Inga and Chu Li had already disappeared. Only the pine tree was cut in the middle and slowly fell. The two of them chased each other in the forest. Soon enough, Liang Inga realized that he had lost his way and was trapped in a formation. The ascending Dragon Mountains formation was no joke. He suddenly stopped and frowned as he looked around. He floated on the treetops. The vast expanse of green was like an ocean. No matter how he ran, it was useless. It was as if he was in the same place. He also understood formations, so he knew that it was extremely difficult to break out of a formation. The more he wandered, the more hopeless it would be. He stood there quietly and observed his surroundings, carefully sensing everything: the flow of the wind, the change in temperature, the humidity of the ground, and the direction of the vegetation. After a while, he still had no clue and gradually became restless. Chi! Suddenly, a whistling sound rang in his ear. He sensed that the saber light had appeared in front of him, but he did not notice its existence. His body had already subconsciously moved to the side, avoiding the saber light that appeared from behind, which made him break out in a cold sweat. The saber light flashed again. He sensed it coming from the left, but it appeared on the right. He knew that his senses had been disrupted by the formation, and it was now the complete opposite. This might be a heaven and earth reversal formation. The next time the saber light flashed, he deliberately avoided it in the opposite direction of his senses, but he did not expect his senses to be right this time. There was no need to go in the opposite direction, so the saber light shone on him. The saber light was too fast, and he could only avoid it by relying on his senses. Once he saw the saber light and tried to avoid it, it was already too late. No matter how good his light body technique was, it was useless, so he could only urge his force to meet the saber light. Chi! The saber light pierced through his right palm without hesitation. He snorted angrily, and his face was covered with frost. His body suddenly sped up, and he pounced in the direction of the saber light. Chi! The saber light flashed again. He felt that he could no longer rely on experience. The saber light appeared in front of him, but he did not treat it as if it was in front of him or behind him. He tried his best to jump up, thinking that he would be able to avoid it. Chi! As soon as he jumped into the air, he saw that the saber light was already in front of him. He cursed and could only helplessly push out his right palm again. His palm was as fast as lightning, but he could only block it for a moment. The flying saber instantly pierced through his palm and shot toward his heart. However, with his right palm blocking it, it was only for a moment, but it was enough for him to move away. Uffed! He spat out an arrow of blood in the air. After the saber penetrated his body, it directly shattered his internal organs, and he was instantly severely injured. A strange force kept colliding in his body again and again, causing him to be injured again and again. You! Liang Inga snorted angrily. Good move. He also knew formations, but now he knew that he still needed to improve his formations, or he would not have been in such a predicament today. He was seriously injured now, and he could originally suppress this ugly guy to the point that he could not breathe, but with the help of the formation, he was the one who suppressed him instead. Unfortunately, he could not escape and could only drag his injured body to entangle with him. His life was uncertain. He swore that he would concentrate on studying formations after he returned. Chu Li laughed out loud. Liang Inga, surrender. What's the benefit of surrendering? Liang Inga snorted coldly. I'm already being lenient by not killing you, but I didn't think that you would dare to come here to die. Chu Li laughed. Think about it yourself. You're so smart. You must have thought of it. The Holy Church of Light. Liang Ying sneered. He was friends with Sun Mingyue because they had a common enemy, but he did not expect Sun Mingyue to take the initiative and attack him first. Chu Li said, "The saint might like you, so she wants to kill you." Ha ha. Liang Ying laughed out loud. Like me? Chu Li nodded. There are only a few people in the world who can catch the saint's eye. The rest of the men are too weak. Do you think it's impossible for the saint to like you? Impossible. Liang Ying scoffed. Her martial arts is too strong, and her state of mind is transcendent. It's impossible for her to have any personal feelings. She's at the age of first awakening in love. How can she not have personal feelings? Chu Li shook his head and laughed. You're the one who deifies the saint too much. I'm not deified at all. You'll know in the future. Liang Ying shook his head. All right, you should go. It's time for you to go. Chu Li chuckled and said, You're going to die today. Will your martial arts be lost? Liang Ying frowned and remained silent. He had only one disciple for several generations, and each generation's successor was extremely brilliant and far surpassed their peers, so it had not been lost. If it was to be lost in his generation, it would be a shame to his master, and he would not be able to face the Grand Master even if he ascended to the Outland. At this thought, he took a deep breath and shook his head. He could not be shaken by this ugly fellow, and it was more important to find a way to escape. Uffed, he spat out another mouthful of blood. Chu Li hid in the formation and watched him gradually weaken, but he did not relax. A person like Liang Ying was not easy to kill, and he had more than one trump card. Chu Li knew very well that he was not in a hurry to escape, and instead, he wanted to take advantage of his weakness and find a chance to give him another hard blow. Liang Ying slowly fell and did not move as if he had lost his strength. His whole body was weak, and he did not have an imposing manner at all. Chu Li suddenly shot out another knife. TSS, the knife flashed, and Liang Ying suddenly pounced on Chu Li. However, Chu Li did not move. Liang Ying raised his bony right palm again, and a faint light flashed. The flying knife that was stuck in his palm did not penetrate it, and he took the flying knife and shot in Chu Li's direction. Chapter 12:20. If Liang Ying knew formations and could find him, it would not be a big deal. However, Liang Ying was not relying on formations, so it was extremely rare, which made Chu Li admire him very much. After one time, Liang Ying was deeply encouraged and felt that this trick was useful. He did not move as if he had become one with the wind and felt Chu Li's position through the wind. Chu Li also did not move and did not use the flying blade in case Liang Ying sensed him. If he did not use the flying blade, he would not have any flaws. Once he used the flying blade, it would be a flaw that was very likely to be caught. Chu Li could only rely on the formation now. This formation was extremely powerful, and he felt that it would not be easy for Liang Ying to break it. He suddenly disappeared in a flash and reappeared 1 meter away from Liang Ying. He could almost reach him if he stretched out his hand. However, Liang Ying could not sense him. This was the beauty of the formation. The reason why the formation had its current status was because it was the mystery of the operation of heaven and earth. It was a supreme existence that was far above humans. When humans did not exist, the formation already existed. It was naturally formed by heaven and earth, and humans slowly discovered the subtlety of the formation and used it. Liang Ying frowned. He faintly felt that something was wrong, but he could not sense it. There was a huge crisis hidden deep in his heart, reminding him to leave quickly and run as far as possible. Unfortunately, he was trapped by the formation and lost his way. It was useless no matter how he ran. At a glance, he was in a vast green sea with no end in sight. He even lost his sense of direction, as if he could not get out of this place. He suddenly dodged to the side, and Chu Li's blade happened to appear again. This early dodge allowed him to avoid his vital points, but he was shot in the shoulder. His movements paused for a moment and slowed down. Chu Li did not fall for it. He did not continue to attack, but instead took a step back. At this moment, Liang Ying's left palm had already arrived, and it almost hit Chu Li. The sharp force of the palm wind brushed past the tip of Chu Li's nose. Chu Li secretly sighed in relief. This Liang Ying was really more cunning than a fox, and he almost fell for it. Fortunately, he did not have the treasured clothing on him, or else it would be more difficult to deal with him. Liang Ying cursed in his heart. This guy was even more cunning than a fox. He was so close to catching him, so close every time. If it was someone else, even with the help of the formation, he would still be able to find a way to catch them and turn defense into offense, turning defeat into victory. After that, Chu Li followed the same pattern. He would change his position with each slash and suddenly shoot out a blade, without Liang Ying noticing. In just a short while, he had already shot out 4 slashes, and Liang Ying had also suffered 4 slashes. Although he only bled a little, he was still wounded, and his vitality was damaged. However, no matter how much his vitality was damaged, it was not a serious injury. He was not as weak as he appeared to be. Chu Li could see that he was pretending to be weak, and was looking for an opportunity to turn defeat into victory. Chu Li would rather have nothing to gain than to not make any mistakes. Both of them were fighting mentally and physically, and they were willing to go to any lengths. Both of them felt that the slightest mistake would result in death. Therefore, both of them felt like they were walking on a tightrope, their bodies tensed up. Chu Li originally wanted to drag it out a little longer, so that Liang Ying's injuries would worsen. However, he did not expect Liang Ying's heart technique to be so amazing that he was slowly recovering from his injuries. His body was not inferior to his own heavenly demon body. Seeing that his plan had failed, he had no choice but to speed up. One slash after another, he wanted to finish off Liang Ying as soon as possible. Pavilion Master. A long shout came from afar. Liang Ying was overjoyed and let out a long roar. Then, a long roar came from afar. The roar was like thunder. Chu Li sighed. The heavens really did not let Liang Ying die. The omniscient mirror was affected by the formation and could not see the entire ascending dragon mountain, but it saw 4 elders slowly approaching. With their speed, they would only need 10 minutes to arrive. 2 of the gray-robed elders had a profound cultivation level, while the other 2 were only innate masters. Chu Li could see that these 2 were formation masters. The 2 of them cooperated. One kept chanting while the other kept deducing. The 2 of them cooperated and walked forward step by step. Their speed was very slow, but no matter how slow they were, as long as they did not stop, they would eventually arrive. They were only about 500 meters away from the 4 of them. Without the formation in the way, they could arrive in an instant. Under the formation, they moved slowly step by step, but their steps were big and faster than ordinary people. It was enough for them to arrive in 10 minutes. After 10 minutes, he frowned and shook his head. He was afraid that he would not be able to defeat Liang Ying. Liang Ying had a strong physique. It was probably because the Crescent Cryptic 9 Kills trial had a body-refining effect. Liang Ying's martial arts also had the ability to prevent prying, so the omniscient mirror could not see his heart. Chu Li had always wanted to defeat Liang Ying. After crippling his martial arts, he could use the omniscient mirror to read Liang Ying's heart, find out about Zhu Laiyang, and find the spirit crane technique. Moreover, even without the spirit crane technique, he wanted to kill Liang Ying and avenge King Ping. so that King Ping would support Suan and prepare for the future fight for the throne. TSS, TSS, TSS. He shot out 4 flying knives in one breath, and the flying knives on him were completely used up. He usually kept the flying knives after shooting out, but this time he did not. The knives were stained with Liang Yinga's blood, and Liang Yinga might be able to sense the flying knives through the blood. If Chu Li had this ability, Liang Yinga might have it too. He flashed into the formation 1 step ahead, and Liang Yinga missed again. Chu Li had already appeared 200 feet away. Then, like a stream of light, he instantly appeared beside the 2 purple-robed elders. He hid in the formation and avoided the senses of the 2 gray-robed elders. 2 energy blades shot toward the backs of the 2 purple-robed elders. TSS, TSS. The energy blades were no different from real knives. There was only a difference when it was used against masters like Liang Yinga. It did not matter to the purple-robed elders, as they were killed in one blow. Bam, bam. The 2 purple-robed elders flew out. Xiao Ge, Xiao Wei. The 2 gray-robed elders cried out. They looked about the same age, but in fact, the 2 purple-robed elders were a generation younger than them. Their martial arts cultivation level was poor, and their mental energy consumption was too high. One of the gray-robed elders went to save them, while the other stood vigilantly at the side, ready to make a move at any time. Chu Li shook his head in disappointment and disappeared in a flash. The next moment, he appeared in a house in the High Duke's public house. The house was full of crystal-clear flying knives. Usually, the High Duke's public house's skilled craftsmen meticulously forged them, and each knife was abnormally sharp. The next moment, Chu Li appeared in the formation again at his original position. Among all the formations, this was the only place where he could freely pass through. His god's limbs could not pass through the other places. Formations were an existence of a higher level than divine power. Of course, it required an ancient formation that was integrated with heaven and earth. Ordinary formations would definitely not work. Moreover, in today's world, the inheritance of formations was getting more and more difficult, and its power was getting weaker. There were formations that could stop his god's limbs, but there were not many of them. It was extremely difficult to set them up. As Chu Li expected, the 2 purple-robed elders had already woken up. They were wearing treasured clothes, so their injuries were not fatal. It seemed that Liang Yinga's treasured clothes were with one of them. Xiao Shi still shook her head. Chu Li frowned. There are other imperial residences that are worth attacking. Prince Kang's imperial residence. Xiao Shi said. Chu Li was surprised. She's really bold. Xiao Shi scoffed. I heard that there are disciples from the Holy Church of Light hiding in Prince Kang's imperial residence. She got the news and brought people to break into the imperial residence. She killed 2 masters from the Holy Church of Light. Chu Li frowned. Will the Crown Prince be willing to do that? She's the Crown Prince's confidant. She represents the Crown Prince's attitude. Can the Crown Prince not tolerate Prince Kong? Who knows? Xiao Shi sneered. She's now riding on the crest of success, full of mettle. It's not easy to be the commander of the Secret Guardians Hall. It's easy to get into trouble. You won't last long if you're not capable. Chu Li said. Lu Yurong might be chased away soon. Xiao Shi instantly smiled. She liked what Chu Li said. However, she did not mean what she said. She's very capable. Let's see if she can suppress Prince Kong this time. Prince Kong. Chu Li frowned. He had a good relationship with Prince Kong. Back then, he was able to return to Fairy's capital from the Imperial Mausoleum because of Prince Kong and the others pleading. It would be difficult to change the emperor's mind on his own. The Ji dynasty's emperor, Long Wufeng, was a strong-willed man. Once he spoke, he would persist to the end, even if he was wrong. The dignity of the royal family was more important than anything else. Xiaoshi said, "You're close to Prince Kong. Do you think Lu Yurong is doing this to deal with you?" Me? Chuli pondered. He did not deny it immediately. It was a possibility. His relationship with Lu Yurong was complicated. They went from enemies to friends. They trusted each other, but did not trust each other. They worked together, but fought against each other. If Lu Yurong was confident that she could win, she would choose to fight without hesitation. Xiaoshi scoffed. "You have to be careful. Lu Yurong is not the same as before. Don't forget that she still has a weakness." May Air Courtyard. Chuli slowly nodded. As they spoke, footsteps from outside came from the chief. The chief steward's footsteps were heard. "Wang Fei, there's an invitation from Prince Kang's Fu outside." "Come in," Xiaoshi said. The chief carefully entered the courtyard and bowed respectfully to Xiaoshi and Chuli. "It's from Prince Kang, head chief." Xiaoshi looked at Chuli. Chuli extended his hand. The chief quickly presented it with both hands. Chuli opened it and nodded. "Is it at the Verdant Cloud brothel again?" Xiaoshi asked. Chuli shook his head. "It's at the imperial residence." "That's good," Xiaoshi said. "It's probably to complain to you." 2 saber lights were shot at Liang Yinge at the same time, one at his throat and the other at his lower abdomen. He then waved his hand again, and the other 2 flying knives shot to the right. Liang Yinge's complexion was extremely bad, but his body movement technique was like a ghost. He instantly dodged 2 flying daggers to the right and collided with the 2 flying daggers that came after him. The manifestation of nature restoration had already figured out where he was going to hide. At this moment, it was already too late for him to dodge. He placed his palms in front of him to block. Chi. 2 blades pierced through his palms and shot diagonally into the air from above his shoulders. Chuli shook his head and sighed as he threw another flying knife. Liang Yinge's perseverance was extraordinary. He used his palms to forcibly change the direction of the flying knives. Not only did he rely on his skill, but he also relied on his fearlessness towards pain. When the flying knife pierced through his palms, the bones of his hands hit the flying knife just in time, thus changing the direction of the high-speed flying knife. It did not seem difficult, but he had to be ruthless to himself first. This made Chuli even more afraid. His killing intent became stronger, so he threw one knife after another. In one breath, he threw all the flying knives he had on him. There were a total of 24 knives, and 12 of them hit Liang Yinge. Liang Yinge was like a bloody gourd. His whole body was soaked in blood. This time, his face was even paler. It was not fake. Chuli went forward and collided head-on with him, forcing him to use his secret skill. If he still could not break the formation after using his secret skill, then he would completely lose. After a few consecutive palm energies, Chuli's palms were dyed red by Liang Yinge and dripped with blood. The palm energy of the 9 kills palm was extremely and pure. It came wave after wave, and there was a trace of the Earth Matrix and Reincarnation Scripture's shadow. This time, Chuli restrained him and was not afraid of the 9 kills palm energy. Through the palm energy, he found that Liang Yinge was indeed abnormally weak. He suddenly had a guess. It was very likely that Liang Yinge had already used his secret skill. Thinking of this, he no longer had any scruples and fiercely performed his secret skill. Suddenly, his body grew taller, and his speed and strength doubled. He instantly knocked Liang Yinge down, then hit his dantian with his palm and destroyed his cultivation level. Everything happened in a flash. After a long stalemate, the turning point was completed in an instant. After a moment, the difference was like heaven and earth. Ha! Chuli looked up and laughed. Liang Ying's face was gloomy. He stared at him with resentment, but did not say a word. Chu Li activated the omniscient mirror and stared at Liang Ying with a smile. Chapter 1224. Sigh, I've failed miserably this time. This fella used a formation to trap me. If it wasn't for the formation, I would have killed him many times over. I see that you didn't manage to take advantage of him. Liang Ying was extremely uncomfortable when he heard Masters Jr. praising Chu Li. He quickly said, "The last time he escorted the Li dynasty's 12th prince to the Zheng dynasty, I chased him until he was battered." Battered? Why didn't you kill him? This fella is cunning and shameless. He actually joined forces with the Fu dynasty's masters, which is why he escaped. Liang Ying curled his lips and scoffed disdainfully. He was furious when he thought about it. This fellow was so slippery that he could never catch him. If he was not careful, he would backfire. He really deserved to die. The beautiful middle-aged woman smiled faintly. "That's right. Masters Jr. Xiao Gu, you're becoming more arrogant. You'll definitely suffer. I might not be able to save you next time. Hee, with Masters Jr. here, I don't have to worry. What will you do when I'm gone?" "How can that be?" Liang Ying laughed. "Masters Jr. isn't old at all. I don't know how long you'll live. I don't have much time left." The beautiful middle-aged woman shook her head and laughed. Liang Ying frowned and said, "Unhappily, Masters Jr." The beautiful middle-aged woman smiled. She was indifferent to life and death. "I'll go to the Ji dynasty in a while. It might be a long time before I return. The Ji dynasty..." Liang Ying frowned. "Masters Jr., why are you going to the Ji dynasty?" "To go back and have a look," the beautiful middle-aged woman replied. Liang Ying hesitated before asking, "Masters Jr., is Master's ancestor still alive?" "Of course not." The beautiful middle-aged woman frowned. "Why are you suddenly asking this? Masters Jr., you never told me when Master's ancestor passed away." Liang Ying said, "He went to the Outland more than 1,000 years ago. The Crescent Cryptic's 9 kills trial was passed down by Master before he passed away. He was far-sighted and predicted that spiritual energy would decrease in the future. He couldn't rely on spiritual energy to become an enlightened master, so he had to find another way. Thus, he created the Crescent Cryptic's 9 kills trial. Then why did my master suffer chi deviation? He deserves it. He secretly cultivated the spirit crane technique." The beautiful middle-aged woman's expression turned cold. Liang Ying braced himself and asked, "Can I cultivate the spirit crane technique?" Every time he asked about Master, Uncle Master would be filled with hatred. He knew that her love had turned into hatred. His martial aunt was angry at his master for abandoning her. "If I cultivate the Crescent 9 kills trial first, I won't be able to cultivate the spirit crane technique. If I cultivate the spirit crane technique, I can cultivate the Crescent 9 kills trial." The beautiful middle-aged woman, Ding Weijia, said faintly, when Master was still alive, he had always resented Green Deer Cliff for having such a high threshold. In the end, he created this Crescent 9 kills trial. However, the threshold of the Crescent 9 kills trial is even higher. Therefore, Master was enlightened and understood Green Deer Cliff's difficulties. He asked Senior Brother to return the Spirit Crane technique to Green Deer Cliff. Liang Ying frowned. Since Grandmaster has betrayed Green Deer Cliff, why did he return the Spirit Crane technique? Green Deer Cliff won't forgive Grandmaster. Anyway, doing something superfluous will only make people think that you're weak and easy to bully. Only by having a clear conscience can one successfully ascend to the Grandmaster's Outland. Ding Weijia said, "Moreover, he doesn't want us to become enemies with Green Deer Cliff. He's afraid that Green Deer Cliff will take revenge on us. No matter how powerful Grandmaster is, he's already entered the Outland. He won't come back just to stand up for us. Liang asked, "Is Green Deer Cliff that strong?" "Green Deer Cliff's strength is much higher than you think," Ding Weijia said. "Whether it's the Li dynasty or the Ji dynasty, the four major sects can't be underestimated." "Yes," Liang nodded. He now had a deep understanding of this sentence. Who would have thought that a remote branch leader of the Holy Church of Light would have such a cultivation level? Liang asked again, "Has Master returned the secret manual to Green Deer Cliff?" How could he disobey Master's order? Naturally, he has returned it, Ding Weijia said. However, with his personality, he wouldn't be willing to return it just like that. He must have secretly read it and cultivated it on his own. As a result, he lost his life. Liang thought about it and shook his head. As a disciple, he naturally could not point out his master's shortcomings. However, from his master's uncle's usual words, he knew that his master was not content with his place. He was reckless and daring. Ding Weijia said, "When senior brother gave the spirit crane technique, he made a promise with Green Deer Cliff. The next generation successor can only cultivate the last 3 levels of the spirit crane technique if his martial arts is stronger than yours. Master is really bad." Liang shook his head and laughed. His qualifications were considered unparalleled in the world. Even the Green Deer Cliff disciples were not stronger than him. Ding Weijia said, "Green Deer Cliff is a big sect. Their reputation is extremely important, especially in front of us. If the current generation's successor isn't confident, he won't come to challenge us." Liang smiled. "Master's uncle, when they come to challenge us, do you want me to loosen my grip? That's up to you." Ding Weijia glanced at him. She had personally taught this nephew of hers, so she naturally understood his personality. He only revealed 70% of his abilities and was good at disguising himself. The Green Deer Cliff disciples might be confident, but they might not win. Liang smiled and nodded. When Master was younger, he accepted disciples and Master's uncles into the sect. 20 years ago, Master's uncles accepted him on behalf of Master's uncles who had died from chi deviation. In short, it had become a tradition for Master's uncles to accept disciples on behalf of others. Master's uncles looked middle-aged, but he was already a few hundred years old. As for whether he was 300, 200, or even 400 years old, he did not know. Ding Weijia suddenly turned to look. "He's catching up?" Liang smiled. He could not wait for Chu Li to catch up. With Ding Weijia's light body technique, the two of them had long left the ascending Dragon Mountain and were no longer shrouded by the formation. Ding Weijia nodded lightly and said, "There's no door to hell, but he still wants to come." "Master's uncle," Liang hurriedly said. "Impossible," Ding Weijia said. Liang said, "If there's no formation, I'm still confident that I can kill him." Ding Weijia glanced at him. "If you want to kill him, then kill him. Isn't it the same if you kill him or I kill him?" "Shut up." She understood Liang's personality. He wanted to keep the ugly guy alive and kill him himself. How could she let him do as he pleased? "All right." Liang sighed. He knew that it was useless to say more, as Master's uncle would not listen. She deliberately slowed down and said, "I've underestimated his light body technique." If Chu Li did not chase after them, she would immediately leave with Liang. If Chu Li chased after them, he would be courting death, and she would not let him go. Her deduction technique was ethereal connection, and her actions had its own rules. Chu Li's figure could be seen from afar. His green robe fluttered in the wind, His figure was elegant, and his temperament was free and unrestrained. In a short while, he had caught up to Ding Weijia. Chu Li was depressed and angry. Even if she was a beauty, and a beauty who could retain her looks, he still wanted to attack her. Liang Yinge laughed. "Zhao De, you're so smart. Why are you so muddle-headed that you're courting death?" Chu Li said coldly, "You're a real man, the mysterious pavilion master, but you need a woman to protect you. How dare you laugh?" "This is my master's uncle." Liang Yinge smiled. "What's so embarrassing about being saved by master's uncle? You're lucky this time. Unfortunately, I won't have the chance to take revenge today. Yes, you won't have the chance to take revenge." Chu Li sneered. He looked at Ding Weijia and sneered. As soon as he finished speaking, he dodged and moved a meter horizontally, but he still could not dodge. Chapter 1225. Chu Li was not surprised. Instead, he was delighted. He was the best at restraining this kind of attack. He used the Earth Matrix and reincarnation scripture to counter it. It was cold when it was cold, and it was hot when it was hot. He kept converting it into his inner energy, which prevented his vital organs from being injured. Bang! He spat out a mist of blood in the air and used the power of this palm to activate the divine light body. His figure suddenly sped up and disappeared from Liang Yinge's sight when the mist of blood fell. Ding Weijia also disappeared at the same time. Liang Yinge stood there and laughed. Masters Jr. had attacked. Zhao De would definitely die. Master's divine movement skill was best at borrowing the power of heaven and earth and even crossing space. It was beyond imagination and was similar to divine power. Chu Li felt a murderous intent following him closely like a shadow. He could not shake it off no matter how hard he tried, nor could he avoid it. He activated the divine light body to its limit and was extremely fast. He was just short of using God's limbs. The middle-aged beauty who attacked him previously had a powerful light body technique, but more importantly, she could hide her killing intent and avoid his senses. His soul was several times stronger than ordinary people, and his intuition was sharper. He could sense the slightest evil intention and avoid it in advance. This ability was especially important against masters who were better than him. However, it failed this time. This middle-aged beauty obviously had a special heart technique that could hide her killing intent. She could pass through the formation and rescue Liang Yinge without any hindrance, which meant that she was proficient in formations. Hiding her killing intent was likely related to formations. Could it be like his concentration talisman? When he killed Liang Yinge, he used formations to hide from Liang Yinge's senses. What goes around comes around. It was his turn to be deceived this time. The woman no longer hid her killing intent. It was obvious that she was determined to kill him. Her light body technique was similar to Imminent Skyline, but her speed was faster. After all, she had hundreds of years of experience. Her killing intent was as dense as a sword. It was as if the tip of a sword was pressed against his back and could stab him at any time. Chu Li felt cold all over and had the urge to use God's limbs, but his rationality made him suppress this urge. Once he used God's limbs, his identity would be suspicious. Not everyone could use divine power. There were only a few in the world, so he could not use it as he wished if he did not want to expose it. Ding Weijia's speed was faster than his divine light body, so she finally caught up. TSS, 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 TSS. Small pits kept appearing around Chu Li, which was even more powerful than the hail. Chu Li's speed immediately changed. He was sometimes fast and sometimes slow, and he combined it with the manifestation of nature restoration to evade every attack from the invisible sword energy by a hair's breadth. He groaned inwardly. The omniscient mirror could clearly see the woman's cold eyes. She waved her hands as if she was playing a pipa. Sword Chi shot out from her fingertips. The omniscient mirror could clearly see the existence of the sword aura. It was extremely solid, as if the 10 fingers had extended countless times, and the fingertips stabbed straight at him. Streaks of sword energy seemed to have materialized and were sharp. His 10 fingers cooperated with each other and weaved a sword net, leaving no room for Chu Li to escape. Just as the sword net was about to form, Chu Li suddenly sped up and rushed out of the fence. Ding Weijie frowned. No wonder he could make Xiao Gu suffer so much. He did have some skill. Her sword chi suddenly changed and became much thicker. As a result, the sword energy was not as solid and pure as before, but its range was greatly increased. It covered almost every inch of the place, making it unavoidable. Before Chu Li could react, he was already hit by the sword energy. Bam, 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 bam. His body moved like lightning. His fists continuously punched out divine light fist after divine light fist, breaking through the sword chi's shroud, and dashed forward. In the blink of an eye, they were more than 10 miles away. Chu Li raised his voice and shouted, "Aren't you afraid that Liang Yinga will be taken away by others?" Ding Weijie did not comment. If Liang Yinga was in danger, she would immediately sense it and rush back. Chu Li shouted, "I still don't know your name after fighting for so long. Tell me your name." "Shut up," Ding Weijie scoffed. She suddenly spat out a white gas. It shrank in the air and condensed into an invisible thin needle. It slowly merged with the surroundings like an ice needle melting into water. It silently shot toward Chu Li's back. This invisible thin needle merged with the void and was covered with killing intent. It approached silently, and even a grandmaster could not guard against it. It was extremely vicious. Chu Li saw it clearly with the omniscient mirror. His heart was filled with killing intent. He sneered, "What a vicious woman. Damn it." He took a hit from the sword energy and shot 2 flying blades at the invisible needle. Ding! The flying blades fell as if they had hit a metal stone. It was invisible and unintentional, but it was so pure and terrifying. How many people could escape from this kind of needle? If he did not have the omniscient mirror, he would have been hit by the needle. Then he took another hit and shot 2 more blades. Ding Weijie frowned. She did not manage to take him down with her forepalms, and he was still fighting back. The 2 slender fingers of her left hand bent, manipulating the 2 streaks of sword chi to meet the flying daggers. Chapter 1226. Chu Li took a deep breath and suppressed his killing intent. Liang Yinga must be waiting for him to kill him, and then use the middle-aged beauty to kill him. That was what he would do. Liang Yinga was also a smart person, so how could he let go of this opportunity? He looked to the south, where Liang Yinga was, and frowned as he pondered. He could sense that Liang Yinga's killing intent was boiling in his heart, and he needed to suppress it. As the pavilion master of the mysterious pavilion, Liang Yinga's status in the Zheng dynasty was not low. He might have a spirit pill to restore his martial arts, so he had to kill him as soon as possible. However, there was also a great risk, and he needed to think about the pros and cons. After a while, he disappeared in a flash and appeared in a pine forest. He used his mind to observe a 10-mile radius and found Liang Yinga. He was sitting quietly in a gazebo cross-legged and recovering his martial arts. The middle-aged beauty was not around, but Chu Li did not feel relieved. Instead, he became vigilant. Therefore, he used the omniscient mirror to the extreme and read the thoughts that flashed in Liang Yinga's mind. He suddenly sneered. It was just as he thought. Liang Yinga used himself as bait, and his master's junior Ding Weijie was hiding at the side. Once he appeared, she would immediately chase and kill him. Chu Li thought about it, and used the omniscient mirror to observe the surroundings again. He narrowed the range and wanted to find Ding Weijie. He did not know what treasure Ding Weijie used to hide herself. He knew that she was nearby, but he could not sense her, and the omniscient mirror could not see her. Chu Li thought for a while and took out a few pieces of white jade. These pieces of white jade flashed with a warm luster, which was far better than normal white jade. At a glance, one could tell that it was valuable. They were rare treasures in the border town. He looked at the 10 pieces of white jade with some regret and shook his head. These 10 pieces of white jade were made with a lot of effort. They needed to be polished, and he would take some time every day to slowly absorb the purple gas from the rising sun and condense it in them. However, it was worth it to exchange these 10 pieces of white jade for Liang Ying's life. Thinking of this, he no longer hesitated and threw out the 9 pieces of white jade. They were all 9 meters away from him according to their unique positions. They were extremely accurate, as if they had been measured with a ruler. He put away the last piece of white jade, and his body suddenly swayed, as if he was standing in the water and looking out. Then he returned to normal. This was not because of the activation of the formation, but because of the resonance with the last piece of white jade. Chu Li heaved a sigh of relief and suddenly disappeared in a flash. The next moment, he fluttered toward Liang Ying. Liang Ying did not move at all and did not sense anything. Along with the loss of his cultivation level, the Grandmaster's sensing ability also faded away, returning to normal. Only his physical qualities did not deteriorate due to the short period of time. When Chu Li drifted about 20 meters away, he knew that it would be difficult to get any closer. Although he did not sense Ding Weijie, she would definitely appear. Thus, he waved both his hands, and 2 streams of light shot towards Liang Ying. The flying blade passed through without any resistance. Chu Li did not advance, but retreated. An invisible needle silently shot from behind. He avoided it in advance, and it brushed past his arm. The hair on his arm seemed to stand up as he felt a fatal danger. Ding Weijie rushed toward him like a white shadow. She waved her jade palm lightly, as if there was no strength at all. However, Chu Li moved 2 steps to the side to avoid her palm. Ding Weijie's body movement technique was even better. She followed him like a shadow. No matter how he dodged, her palm kept approaching. The subtlety of her palm technique could not be compared to Liang Ying. Chu Li glanced at Liang Ying, who was in the distance. They were 20 meters apart. Without martial arts, he did not know how he managed to avoid that attack just now. He wanted to shoot the flying blade again, but he had no time to do so. Ding Weijie's white jade-like palms had already enveloped him, forcing him to take it head-on. Bang! The 2 palms collided, and there was a thunderous explosion. Chu Li flew backward, and his face turned red. Ding Weijie's inner energy was as pure as mercury. Yin and yang were in harmony, and water and fire intersected. It was as if several different kinds of inner energy were mixed together and intertwined like braids. The purity and mixture blended together, and it was extremely strange and powerful. Chu Li kept changing the earth matrix and reincarnation scripture. He spat out 3 mouthfuls of blood in a row. His body kept retreating, and he used space to alleviate the impact. Liang Ying smiled and took out a small box that looked like a ring. He took out a red pill and slowly put it into his mouth. Chu Li saw in his mind that this was a spirit pill unique to the Zheng dynasty, the small creation pill. Its effect was similar to the primary heaven pill. Ding Weijie's face was cold. She looked at Chu Li as if she was looking at a dead man. Chu Li suddenly turned in the air and shot toward Liang Ying. "You're courting death." Ding Weijie sneered and appeared in front of him. Bang! their palms collided again, and Chu Li flew backward. He used the force to accelerate and suddenly went far away. Ding Weijie sneered. It won't be so easy to escape this time. Like a stream of light, she caught up with Chu Li in the blink of an eye. Her light body technique was so fast that Chu Li wanted to learn it. Apart from God's limbs, nothing else could compare to it. Even the imminent skyline was slightly inferior. Bang! She hit him with her palm again. She realized that compared to her deadliest invisible needle, the 9 kills palm was easier to restrain Zhao De. Chu Li sped up again and spat out another mouthful of blood in the air to eliminate his internal injury. He sighed in his heart. He had to replenish his blood when he returned. It was really a disaster to meet such an evil woman. In the blink of an eye, they had traveled a few miles. Chu Li instantly entered the formation that he had set up. His movements suddenly slowed down as if his injuries were acting up and he could no longer escape. Although Ding Weijie was cold, she could not help but feel anxious. She originally thought that killing Chu Li would be a piece of cake. She did not expect Chu Li to be so tenacious. Instead, her killing intent became stronger. When she saw Chu Li reveal a flaw, she wanted to kill him with her palm. As soon as she approached Chu Li and was about to attack, she saw Chu Li's smile and felt that something was wrong. Chu Li took out the white jade and gently pinched it. The white jade turned into powder, and a stream of light shot into the sky. It flashed and disappeared as if it had never appeared. Ding Weijie's expression changed. Chu Li had disappeared. She was originally a formation master, so how could she not know that Chu Li had set up a formation? She never thought that Chu Li could use jade talismans to refine weapons and set up a formation. She did not even have such a standard. Liang Yinge sat cross-legged and channeled. He was ecstatic. The joy of regaining what he had lost was indescribable. Waves of inner energy spread out from his stomach and kept entering his dantian. His cultivation level kept rising. In just a short while, he had become an innate master. In less than 2 hours, he could restore his original cultivation level. While he was ecstatic, he also felt regretful. It was a pity that he could not kill Chu Li personally. It was like a fishbone stuck in his throat. If Masters Jr. could cripple Zhao De, he could interrogate him and torture him for a few days before killing him. That would be satisfying and would be beneficial to his future cultivation. Chapter 12:27. Liang Yinge's expression changed, and he leaped up. Chu Li did not wait for him to speak. A stream of light flew out from his sleeve 33 and pierced through his temple without any obstruction. Liang Yinge's eyes widened, and his gaze slowly dimmed. Finally, he fell to the ground. Bang! An explosion was heard from afar. Chu Li glanced at it. The formation method of jade talismans had its weaknesses. It was far better to use the terrain of the mountains to set up a formation. After all, those mountains and terrains had accumulated spiritual energy for tens of thousands of years, which was incomparable to jade talismans. Moreover, his jade talisman refining standard was ordinary, and he had just touched the door of a treasure tool. Although he knew that the jade talisman could only trap Ding Weijie for a while, he did not expect her to break through it so quickly. Her cultivation level was beyond what he had seen. Their line had this habit. However, after Liang Yinge's death, this line would probably be broken. His thoughts were lightning fast, and he was far more agile than ordinary people. At this moment, he still had the time to sigh. Throughout history, many sects and martial arts were broken like this. Life and death were the foundation. Ding Weijie's face was as pale as paper. When she appeared in front of Liang Yinge, Chu Li had already left, and only Liang Yinge's corpse fell on the grass. The surrounding air seemed to freeze, and the world lost its color. Little Gu Ding Weijie hurried forward and saw Liang Ying's injury. Her voice trembled, and her face was as cold as steel. Tears fell from her bright eyes. Although he was a disciple, he was no different from a son. The pain of losing a son was enough to drive people crazy. Her eyes were like ice and lightning. She glanced coldly at the direction of the Ji dynasty, then carried Liang Ying and flew away. The sun set in the Divine Light Basilica. The glacier at the top of the Great Light Peak reflected the afterglow like a golden color. The Divine Light Basilica was unusually bright. Chu Li stood in the basilica with a heavy expression. Sun Mingyue sat elegantly and dignified behind the table. She wore a snow-white dress and a white veil. She was staring at him with her bright eyes. "You're saying that you really killed Liang Ying?" "Yes." "How did you kill him?" "I killed him. I got into big trouble." Chu Li scoffed. "Liang Ying has a female master's junior. I'm no match for her." Ding Weijie. Sun Mingyue regained her calmness and nodded gently. "A very powerful old monster. You met her? You're really lucky to be able to come back." He was unlucky to have encountered Ding Weijie, but he was extremely lucky to have survived. Ding Weijie's cultivation level was profound, and no matter how strong Zhao De was, he was no match for her. Chu Li sighed. "There's a formation on the ascending Dragon Mountain, and I used it to cripple Liang Ying. When I was about to kill him, Ding Weijie saved him, but I set up a formation to trap her for a moment and took the opportunity to kill Liang Ying." Sun Mingyue looked at him in surprise. "Can you really set up a formation?" Chu Li looked at her arrogantly. He did not bother to explain. Sun Mingyue knew that he had learned about formations in the Phoenix Goddess brothel. Although the disciples of Tian Luo sect had learned about formations, there were only a few who could use them. Although Zhao De was smart and could learn a little, he could not compare to Ding Weijie. Ding Weijie wasn't just a formation master. She was also a seer who could peer into the heavens. Even though she could only peer into the surface of the heavens, it was still extremely terrifying. Sun Mingyue frowned. She got up and left the armchair. She paced back and forth in front of the table with her hands behind her back. After pacing back and forth a few times, she sighed softly. She knew how powerful Liang Ying was. At first, she thought that she would make Chu Li suffer a little, or even destroy his arrogance, and train him to change his unscrupulous and unruly character. She never thought that Chu Li would really kill Liang Ying. Chu Li said, "Ding Weijie will definitely take revenge." "Yes." Sun Mingyue rubbed her brows and shook her head. "Now that things have come to this, you can only return to the Great Light Peak. Am I supposed to hide in the Great Light Peak for the rest of my life? Just cultivate in isolation. You'll be able to go out whenever you want if your martial arts is stronger than hers. She has hundreds of years of accumulation. How can I catch up to her in a day?" Chu Li was unconcerned. "I'm not worried about myself. I'm worried about the people around me, including Senior Sister Du." As he spoke, he looked at Sun Mingyue with a faint smile. Sun Mingyue was annoyed by his expression. She asked nonchalantly, "Do you like doing?" "Senior Sister Du can't become Senior Sister Li, so you should just give up, Saint." Chu Li scoffed. Sun Mingyue knew that her thoughts had been seen through. She said angrily, "You think too highly of yourself. Do you really think that doing will like you?" Chu Li smiled. "Of course not." Sun Mingyue's red lips moved slightly, but stopped. She scoffed. "All right, doing won't look for you anymore." Pointing it out was a rejection. Since it was useless to force it, it was better to just give up. Chu Li smiled. "You're such a sentimental person." Sun Mingyue said, "Are you afraid that doing will take revenge on you?" Yes. Chuli nodded. Sun Mingyue saw that he was so confident. It was hard to tell if he was telling the truth. She disliked the feeling of not being in control the most. It took too much effort to see clearly, not to mention that she could not see clearly. And those people from Gale Branch. Chuli frowned. They can't keep doing this. Is there any other way? Sun Mingyue nodded. She was very satisfied with Chu Li's worried look. His heart was not cold yet, and he was still kind and beautiful. If he only cared about himself and did not care about his subordinates, she would have killed him long ago. It was because of his bad nature that she could tolerate his troubles and still wanted to use him. Otherwise, she would have thrown him away like trash. Chu Li ignored her praise and asked, "Is there any other way?" "I'll send a master from the church over," Sun Mingyue said. Chu Li frowned. Sun Mingyue could tell that he did not believe in the church's masters. She scoffed. "There are many masters in the church. There are many who are more powerful than you. More powerful than the priest and the others?" Sun Mingyue scoffed. The former priest, and even the priest before him are all here." Chu Li smiled. Sun Mingyue asked, "Are you going to stay at Great Light Peak or Gale Branch?" "Since there are masters from the church, I'll stay at Gale Branch first." Chu Li said, "That's good too." Sun Mingyue said, "You haven't experienced how powerful Ding Weijie is. Don't get killed by her." Chu Li smiled. "Ding Weijie's divine foresight. She knows divination." Sun Mingyue said, "She can steal heavenly secrets." "She can divine my location?" Chu Li scoffed. Sun Mingyue said, "She can divine things that others don't know." Chu Li frowned and remained silent. He was really afraid that his true identity would be divined out. If Zhao De's identity was exposed, she would not be the only one hunting him down. The Holy Church of Light would also be hunting him down. Furthermore, it would be worse if she could divine his other identity. "Are you afraid?" Sun Mingyue smiled, faintly. Chu Li said, "Divination is from the Fu Dynasty's Divination Pavilion, right? It's a secret skill unique to the Divination Pavilion." Sun Mingyue nodded. "Her identity is not simple." Chu Li frowned. "If she's that powerful, won't she be invincible?" "There's no such thing as invincible martial arts." Sun Mingyue said, "All right, you should go back. Hurry up and cultivate in isolation. We won't need you this year." Chu Li looked at her discontentedly. He stopped talking halfway. Sun Mingyue said, "No matter what, martial arts is the foundation." Chu Li knew that he could not get any more information out of her. He stared at her with dissatisfaction. Chapter 1228. Chu Li hated her keeping him in suspense. It was impossible for him to pry Sun Mingyue's mouth open, so he could only think of a way himself. She was right about one thing: there was no such thing as invincible martial arts. Between heaven and earth, if there was yin, there must be yang. Everything subdued something else, and martial arts were the same. In terms of knowledge, among all the people he knew, Xiao Shi was the most knowledgeable. When he returned to Tianshu Courtyard, Xiao Shi was talking to Xiao Qi with a smile on her face. When she saw him, she only glanced at him. Chu Li came to their stone table and sat down. Xiao Qi asked, "Is everything all right over there?" Her cold gaze was filled with concern as she sensed the heaviness in Chu Li's heart. Chu Li smiled and nodded. "Madam, do you understand heavenly prophecy?" Xiao Qi said, "It's the Fu Dynasty's Destiny Pavilion's unique secret skill. It's very famous, but due to the harsh requirements to cultivate it, only a few people in the world know how to use it." Chu Li nodded slowly. Xiao Qi continued, "Using this skill, will damage one's lifespan, and one will be punished by the heavens. Therefore, even if one successfully cultivates this skill, he won't easily use it, so you don't have to worry. Sio sure pursed her red lips and scoffed. Did you offend someone who cultivates the art of divination? The disciples of the Pavilion of Heavenly Secrets usually don't involve themselves with the secular world. How did you offend them? I didn't expect her to be from the Pavilion of Secrets either, but it's too late now. He briefly explained the situation to her. It was just a few words, but it made Xiao Shi's jade-like face turn serious. She said hatefully, "This Sun Mingyue is really up to no good. She wants to get rid of you." Xiao Qi frowned. "Has your identity been exposed?" She had always been worried about this. Once Chu Li was exposed, he would not have a good life anymore. The power of the Holy Church of Light was not to be trifled with. Once they went berserk, they would be terrifying. Chu Li smiled. "You don't have to go through so much trouble to get rid of me." "Oh, right. Is there any way to restrain the divination art?" No matter how powerful he was still far from Sun Mingyue. The stronger one's cultivation was, the deeper one's perception would be. Sun Mingyue's power was usually hidden, like an iceberg hidden in the water. Occasionally, he would see the tip of the iceberg. Xiao Qi said, "You don't have to worry. The Mahavairokkana's immobility scripture can evade the heavenly oracle spell." Chu Li heaved a long sigh of relief. Thank God. His heart was finally at ease. Xiao Shi chuckled. "But don't get too full of yourself. If your divination art is cultivated to the pinnacle, you won't be able to protect yourself if your Mahavairokkana's immobility scripture isn't profound enough." Chu Li nodded slowly. He had been cultivating Mahavairokkana's immobility scripture all this while. Even though he was cultivating all 4 scriptures at the same time, his speed was several times faster than an ordinary person's. After all, he had only been cultivating for a short period of time, and his level of attainment was still lacking. If he wanted to avoid the divination art, he would have to speed up his cultivation of the 4 scriptures. He stood up. "I should go to Prince Kang's banquet." The 2 girls nodded simultaneously. Prince Kang's mansion, Chu Li and Prince Kong sat in a gazebo in the backyard. Prince Kong usually hosted a banquet to entertain his guests in the living room. Prince Kong and Chu Li had a close relationship, so there was no need for him to stand on ceremony. Prince Kong brought Chu Li to the backyard and chatted while eating and drinking. The surrounding maids and guards were all chased away, leaving only the 2 of them in the large back garden. When the lanterns were first lit, the pavilion was brightly lit as if it was daytime. "The Royal Highness has summoned me. Is there a reason?" Chu Li put down his wine glass and asked with a smile. Prince Kang's smiling face slowly darkened. Chu Li smiled. "Your Royal Highness, we're not strangers. There's no harm in telling you." Prince Kong sighed and shook his head. "I'm too embarrassed to tell you." "Something about the Secret Guardian's Hall?" Chu Li asked. "Lu Yurong has become the commander of the Secret Guardian's Hall. Is she trying to use your Royal Highness to establish her authority?" Prince Kong smiled bitterly. "Lu Yurong is indeed powerful. The Crown Prince is lucky. What did she catch, your Royal Highness?" "Sigh." Prince Kong sighed. "One of my concubines has a questionable identity." Chu Li stared at him. Prince Kong said, "She used to be a disciple of the Holy Church of Light." Chu Li burst out laughing. "Your Royal Highness, please don't joke around." "Do I look like I'm joking?" Prince Kong said impatiently. "How can I be in the mood to joke around at a time like this? I'm so worried." Chu Li touched his chin and could not help but laugh. Even the Royal Highness would do such a foolish thing. "It happened when I was young." Prince Kong shook his head. "But when love comes, everything ends. I can't leave just because of her identity. Tell me, young Chu, You used to be from the Secret Guardians Hall. You have any ideas? Chu Li sighed and shook his head in silence. He never thought that Prince Kong would make such a huge mistake. As a prince of a country, he had access to many military affairs and secrets. It was inevitable that he would reveal one or two things when he spoke to the concubines. If the concubines revealed this to the Holy Church of Light, the losses would be immeasurable. Many people would lose their lives because of this. It was not that Prince Kong did not know about this, but he committed the mistake despite knowing it. Chu Li had nothing to say. Does the emperor know? Chu Li asked. Prince Kong said, I've told my brother. That's good. Chu Li sighed in relief. Since the emperor knows, I'll let the emperor tell Lu Yurong about it. But it's not convenient for my brother to tell her. Prince Kong shook his head. That girl Lu Yurong has predicted this, and is purposely making things difficult for me. Chu Li nodded thoughtfully. It'll be troublesome if the emperor doesn't tell her. Based on my understanding of Lu Yurong, she'll definitely make a big fuss, and then the consequences were obvious. If Chu Li and Prince Kong were not friends, he would agree with Lu Yurong's actions. As a prince, how could he marry a disciple of the Holy Church of Light as a concubine? It was like playing with fire, forcing everyone in the Ji dynasty to play with it. The imperial concubine has left the Holy Church of Light a long time ago. Prince Kong said. Chu Li asked, Can you be sure, Your Royal Highness? I guarantee it with my life. Prince Kong said. Chu Li pondered for a moment. Can I see the imperial concubine? Young Chu, you still don't believe me. Prince Kong said impatiently. Chu Li said, Your Royal Highness, you're involved in this and can't make a clear judgment. I'm an outsider. All right. Prince Kong hesitated for a moment before agreeing. He knew that Chu Li was agreeing to help. He raised his voice and shouted, Someone, invite Princess Ji over. After the time it took to drink a cup of tea, a graceful woman dressed in a green robe gracefully walked over. She looked middle-aged and much younger than Prince Kong. She was beautiful and had bright eyes. She had the temperament of a young girl. Chu Li sighed. It seemed that she had been living a happy life all these years. Prince Kong had protected her well and rarely experienced the hardships and vicissitudes of life. Princess, this is young Chu. Prince Kong waved his hand and chuckled. He's very familiar with the disciples of the Holy Church. I've heard of God's Chu Li. He's the enemy of the Holy Church. Ji Man chuckled. Chu Li gave a fist salute and bowed. Prince Kong said, Don't scare young Chu. Chu Li smiled and shook his head. Is the princess still a disciple of the Holy Church of Light? Of course. Ji Man said, If I'm not a disciple of the Holy Church, then I'm a traitor. The Holy Church will definitely kill traitors. There's no escape. It seems that the Holy Church of Light wants you to lie low for a long time. Chu Li smiled. That's right. Ji Man said, You seem to know a lot. Chu Li shook his head. You flatter me. Do you want to kill me? Ji Man smiled slyly. Chapter 1229. Chu Li smiled. Why would you want to kill the princess? Because I'm a disciple of the Holy Church of Light. You've stumped me, princess. Chu Li shook his head and laughed. If she was really a disciple of the Holy Church of Light, she would be punished for leaking information. However, through the observation of the omniscient mirror, Ji Man was now a traitor of the Holy Church of Light. She had no intention of contributing to the Holy Church of Light. Of course, she was willing to help as long as it did not harm Prince Kong. Women were extroverted since ancient times. She did not care about the Holy Church of Light since she had a husband. He shook his head. Princess, you have to be careful. How can the Holy Church of Light not know what you're thinking? But why have you been holding it in? G-Man-Man's face darkened, and she sighed. She knew the Holy Church of Light very well. They would never let go of any traitor. Since ancient times, no traitor of the Holy Church of Light had survived. There were many masters in the Holy Church of Light. Once they went all out to kill someone, there would be no hope of survival. It would be useless even if they hid in the Fu dynasty. Someone did it before, but he did not survive. Ordinary people only saw the Holy Church of Light. It was secretive and mysterious. Only the true disciples knew that the Holy Church of Light had several peaks. Each peak was home to top-notch masters. Chu Li pondered. They're holding back because they want to make trouble in the future. They're threatening your Royal Highness's life to force you to leak information. Can you refuse? Young Chu. Prince Kong said. Chu Li said, Your Royal Highness, this will happen. The princess understands. Prince Kong scoffed. I'd rather lose my life. Chu Li shook his head. G-Man-Man could betray the Holy Church of Light for him, let alone the G dynasty. Prince Kong frowned. Young Chu, tell me quickly. You have any ideas? Yes. Chu Li nodded. Play dead. Prince Kong asked, Play dead? Chu Li shook his head and looked at G-Man-Man. Once the princess dies, Lu Yurong won't be able to make a fuss. Death is the most important thing. The emperor will be able to speak. That's a good idea. G-Man-Man smiled. She looked at Chu Li. You won't let me fake my death, right? Chu Li smiled. Don't worry, princess. Prince Kong also laughed and said, Princess, you can really let your imagination run wild. Are you afraid that little Chu will kill someone? Ha ha. G-Man-Man rolled her eyes at him and snorted. Little Chu's reputation is not just for show. In her eyes, Chu Li could be said to be cruel and merciless, according to her situation. The best way to break out of this situation was to kill her, and then everything would be fine. His Royal Highness might be sad that he had just died, but he would also slowly calm down and accept this matter. He might not even fall out with Chu Li and become enemies. After all, Chu Li was doing this for his own good. When she thought of this, she felt a chill run down her spine. She looked at Chu Li with a complicated gaze. Chu Li said, Not many people from the Holy Church of Light know about the princess's identity, right? Everyone thinks I'm dead. Only the Holy Maiden knows I'm alive, G-Man-Man said. Chu Li grinned. It seems that the princess is also one of the top disciples in the Great Light Peak. That's why she's been entrusted with such an important task. This is supposed to be an easy task. G-Man-Man rolled her eyes at Prince Kong. If she had not met this enemy, she would not have done such an unwise thing. However, if it was not for him, she would not be able to live such a happy life. Life was unpredictable, but she did not regret it. Xiao Man, I want to talk to little Chu about something else, Prince Kong said. G-Man-Man grinned. Sure, go to the Verdant Cloud brothel if you want. Of course not. Prince Kong quickly waved his hand. G-Man-Man chuckled. Look at how scared you are. Why are you feeling guilty? Little Chu, did the food taste good? It looks, smells, and tastes great, Chu Li praised. I personally cooked it. It's good that you like it. G-Man-Man pursed her lips and smiled before she left. Chu Li turned to look at Prince Kong. Prince Kong was staring at her graceful back. Chu Li secretly shook his head and smiled bitterly. No wonder Prince Kong was so obsessed with her. He even dared to do something like this. G-Man-Man was indeed very charming. She was amorous and had an ever-changing temperament. Every frown and smile of hers was moving. After such a long time, love often turned into familial love. Prince Kong should have become numb to her beauty. However, looking at him, It was obvious that he had experienced it for a long time. No wonder he was so desperate. Chu Li said, "Actually, there's another way." "Say it." Prince Kong turned to look at him. Chu Li said, "Your Royal Highness, die together. Actually, it's not a bad idea to go to the Imperial Mausoleum. Fake your death and live in seclusion." Prince Kong frowned and thought about it. He sighed. "I'm afraid my brother won't agree to it. I'm afraid the Emperor would be eager for your Royal Highness to do so." Chu Li smiled. "It's just because of our brotherhood and the criticism that I can't bring myself to say it. I'm just waiting for your Royal Highness to say it himself." "If that's the case," Prince Kong frowned and thought about it. "If there's no other way, this is the only way. However, it's really frustrating to be pushed away by a little girl." Chu Li said, "That's true. Young Chu, I know that the two of you have a good relationship." Prince Kong smiled faintly. When Chu Li left the Imperial Mausoleum, Lu Yurong escorted him all the way. Chu Li smiled bitterly. "She's afraid that if I die, she won't be able to find a rival. The two of us are not as romantic as your Royal Highness thinks." It's hard for two extremely intelligent people to be together. Prince Kong nodded and smiled. "However, there are exceptions. As long as one of them can suppress the other, I think you can suppress her, young Chu." Chu Li shook his head and smiled. If that was the case, they would be fighting all day and night. It would be exhausting. The backyard of the Crown Prince's residence was brightly lit. Lu Yurong was reading in a gazebo on the lake. Her clothes were as white as snow, and her eyes were as bright as the stars. 9 maids were either boating on the lake or in other gazebos. They were still surrounding her in a formation. Chu Li suddenly appeared in front of her. The 9 maids looked up at him cautiously. When they saw that it was him, they relaxed and continued with their work without paying much attention to him. Lu Yurong's hair was loose. It was as black as silk, and her face was as fair as jade. She put down her scroll and glanced at him. "You went to see Prince Kong? The Secret Guardian's Hall is getting better." Chu Li said. He had already recognized that the people from the Secret Guardian's Hall were in the imperial residence of Prince Kong through the omniscient mirror. However, he did not say anything. It was not a good thing that the imperial residence of Prince Kong had no secret guardians. "You want to plead for Prince Kong?" Lu Yurong said coldly. Chu Li waved his hand. "Why would Prince Kong be chosen? Logically speaking, Prince Kong is already very good as a member of the imperial family. Could it be the Emperor's intention?" Lu Yurong said. "It was Prince Kong who came. I was checking the internal security of the imperial family, especially the disciples of the Holy Church of Light. I didn't expect Princess Kong to come. How could I just let her go?" Chu Li nodded. "If you just let her go, you'll lose your dignity as the commander of the Secret Guardians Hall." Lu Yurong scoffed. "This is really shocking. It scared me." She knew that Chu Li could understand. If he was in her shoes, he would have done the same. Chapter 1230. Lu Yurong glanced at him, but did not refute. She knew she could not hide it from him. Chu Li laughed. "You've got guts. You're quite bold. Who would have thought such a shocking thing would be discovered?" Lu Yurong scoffed, with a helpless look on her face. She was a newly appointed official, and she wanted to rectify the foul atmosphere in the Secret Guardians Hall. Guyu had only been in office for a short while, but he had caused a lot of trouble in the Secret Guardians Hall. She was too lazy to recover bit by bit, so she went straight to the point. She wanted to scare them off in one go. Investigating and killing the disciples of the Holy Church of Light was the most effective. The disciples of the Holy Church of Light in the fairies' capital were people who risked their lives to meet death. They all treated death as a shortcut to ascend to the outland. Once these people were discovered, they would perish together. Even if they could be caught, they would quickly escape with their lives and ascend to the great light state. The secret guardians of the secret guardians all trembled in fear when faced with such people. They had to be alert, or they would die if they were not careful. The secret guardians all became very efficient when they were nervous. They quickly found information about Prince Kang's consort. Chun Donghai reported in public, so she could not suppress it. Otherwise, the secret guardians would look down on her. She would not be able to do what she wanted, and it would take her more time and effort. After thinking for a while, she decided to continue investigating and not give up halfway. Of course, she understood that Chun Donghai wanted to go against her, so she assigned him a task to send him far away. She would deal with him later. Chuli said, but using the consort as bait isn't a good idea. She's a disciple of the Holy Church of Light. Lu Yurong said coldly, she's not a consort. Chu Li shook his head. She didn't do anything to harm the Ji dynasty. Her existence is harmful to the Ji dynasty. Lu Yurong sneered. Prince Kong asked you for help. Are you going to plead on his behalf? The emperor knows about this too. Chuli said, but he's too embarrassed to point it out. I won't stop. Lu Yurong shook her head. If she really didn't harm the Ji dynasty, then forget it. Otherwise, I can only hand her over to the emperor. Chuli said, seems like you know what to investigate. He speculated maliciously that the emperor might also be curious about whether Princess Kong had done anything harmful to the great Ji all these years, so he did not say anything. The emperor was always suspicious and alone, no matter who became the emperor, it was the same. Lu Yurong said, if Princess Kong did not do it, I will not accuse her. Chuli gave a fist salute and smiled. Thank you very much. Whether it was done or not was often decided by Lu Yurong's words. If it was not found out, it could be said that it was suspicious. If it was found out, it could be said that it was wrong. In short, Lu Yurong's words determined Princess Kang's situation. Of course, even if Princess Kong did something harmful to the great Ji dynasty, the emperor would probably not kill her. At most, Prince Kong would be sent to supervise the construction of the imperial mausoleum. If Lu Yurong wanted to establish her authority, she could just say that Princess Kong was suspicious. The emperor would send Prince Kong and the others to the imperial mausoleum, and Lu Yurong's authority would be established. From then on, Huan Woyang would dare to be presumptuous with her. So he owed Lu Yurong another favor. Lu Yurong asked, would she really dare to betray the Holy Church of Light? The Holy Church of Light might have forgotten about her. Chuli shook his head. The Holy Church of Light would never forgive a traitor. Lu Yurong said, so it's hard for her to survive. If she investigated, the Holy Church of Light would definitely know. Even if they did not care about her, they would remember now. The best way is to play dead. Lu Yurong said, I'll get someone to kill her. Chuli smiled. Both of them had the same idea. Playing dead was a way to solve the problem once and for all. Unfortunately, Prince Kong and his wife had not made up their mind. Chuli said, are you going to send someone to the Holy Church of Light as a spy? Lu Yurong chuckled and did not say anything. Chuli said, maybe you don't have a predecessor, so you're not clear about some things. Don't go undercover in the Holy Church of Light. Lu Yurong frowned. They're only allowed to come to the great Ji dynasty. We can't go there? You can go to other places, even Jade Capital, but don't go to the Holy Church of Light. Chuli frowned. The Secret Guardians Hall has sent many secret guardians to the Holy Church of Light over the years, but none of them succeeded. The saint of the Holy Church of Light, Sun Mingyue, has the ability to see through people's hearts. Going there will only result in death. That powerful. Lu Yurong pondered. No wonder. She did not find any information about the Holy Church of Light in the Secret Guardians Hall's dossier. Chu Li said, "Don't tell me you've already sent them out." "I'm choosing." Lu Yurong said, "I thought people from May Air Courtyard would be suitable." Chu Li smiled. Lu Yurong said with a smile, "Chu Li, your May Air Courtyard is really powerful. No wonder Gu Yu was so mad. May Air Courtyard has the most grandmasters, as well as tracking experts and investigation experts. The best of them are in May Air Courtyard, but they only listen to you." Chu Li said, "I'll tell them. If this goes on, I'll be ruthless." Lu Yurong said. Chu Li nodded. "Don't forget our promise." "Of course." Lu Yurong said, "Chu Li, I realize that you're very familiar with the Holy Church of Light." Chu Li frowned and stared at her. "What are you trying to say? Before Gu Yu died, he said that you're in cahoots with the Holy Church of Light." Lu Yurong's eyes were clear as water as she glanced at him. Chu Li frowned. "Why are you bringing this up again? Gu Yu may be incompetent and muddle-headed, but it might not be a lie." Lu Yurong shook her head. "He knows that slandering you is useless. He must have found evidence." Chu Li laughed. "You're such a whimsical person." Lu Yurong was unmoved. Her watery eyes were still scanning his face, trying to see every change in his expression. Unfortunately, Chu Li's expression was calm, and his smile was not forced. Lu Yurong smiled. "I think you know the Holy Church of Light very well. There's only one explanation." Chu Li smiled, but did not say anything. He was not anxious at all. Lu Yurong had been testing him. Seeing how calm he was, she became more certain of her guess. She said slowly, "Chu Li, did you sneak into the Holy Church of Light?" Chu Li laughed. "You're daydreaming again. The saint of the Holy Church of Light can see through people's hearts. No one in the Ji dynasty knows about this. The Secret Guardians Hall didn't have this information." "How did you know?" Lu Yurong smiled. "I guessed," Chu Li said. "You don't say things that you're not sure about." Lu Yurong smiled and shook her head. Her eyes were still fixed on him. She did not give up on testing him. She smiled. "So, you're very sure. The only possibility is that you've seen it yourself." "There's no such thing. I'm very busy. I don't have time to bother with them. You should think about serious matters. Don't bother me all the time." Chu Li scoffed. Lu Yurong shook her head. "Time. Others can't, but you have divine powers. You can travel thousands of miles in an instant." Chu Li rubbed his forehead. "Your way of thinking is really— I don't know what to say. You admit it, right?" Lu Yurong smiled. She enjoyed this feeling very much. Finally, she could hold her head high and suppress him. Chu Li said, "There's no such thing. Why would I admit it? I'll tell the people in the May Air Courtyard. Think of an idea about Consort Kong faking her death. I'll tell them." Chapter 1231. Chu Li's expression changed slightly, and he nodded slowly. This was another favor. Even though he knew she was doing it on purpose, and that he would have to repay her in the future, he was still grateful. He closed fist, saluted, and disappeared from the gazebo. Lu Yurong sat down, thoughtfully, and looked at the sparkling lake under the moonlight. Her mind worked like lightning. She replayed the scenes of her interaction with Chu Li in front of her. She analyzed the changes in his expression, the words he said, and the changes in his tone, trying to figure out if she was right. If there was anyone who could sneak into the Holy Church of Light, it would be him. Only he had the ability. However, he was a Centaurian. He should not have done such a dangerous thing. Sneaking into the Holy Church of Light was dangerous. How could a Centaurian like him take such a risk? Chu Li appeared in a forest outside the Valley of Snow Lunar Pavilion in a flash. There were not many masters within a 10-mile radius. Without the feeling of an impending storm, the people who were eyeing them left, and Snow Lunar Pavilion returned to peace. In the depths of the forest, 8 miles away from Chu Li, he saw a group of people in black huddled on a tree branch, unmoving. It was as if they were one with the tree branch. Coupled with the clothes they wore, it was hard to tell from the outside. Chu Li knew they were masters from the Holy Church of Light at a glance. There were 6 of them, and their cultivation level was far higher than Li Hanyan's. They looked like they had waited for more than a day. This Lu Yurong. Thinking of this, he disappeared again in a flash and appeared in Li Hanyan's house. He did not care about the boundaries between men and women. It was already night, and Snow Lunar Valley was brightly lit. The waterside pavilion he was in was dark. There was only a faint light reflected from the outside. It was unusually weak, as if it was 2 different worlds. When he appeared, he saw Li Hanyan sitting on the bed to heal her injuries. Chu Li frowned. Li Hanyan opened her eyes. The originally dark waterside pavilion was suddenly lit up. The room was electrified. "Big Brother Chu," she said softly. Her voice was hoarse. She was heavily injured. "What happened?" Chu Li asked. He went forward and grabbed her cold wrist. He probed with his inner energy and observed with the omniscient mirror. He frowned when he saw his inner energy circulating in her body. "I'm fine," Li Hanyan said quickly. Chu Li scoffed. He leaped onto the bed and sat behind her. Then he slapped her back a few times. Uffed. Li Hanyan threw herself forward, her head out of the bed, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. The darkness could not obstruct Chu Li's gaze. He saw that the corner of her snow-white lips had been dyed dark red. It was a sight that stirred him to the core. Li Hanyan's breathing became smoother all of a sudden, and the inner energy in her body flowed faster. It was completely different from before. Chu Li's palm strikes were very precise. Every palm strike was aimed at the most crucial part of her body, striking at the hidden force and injuries in her body, causing them to collapse in one hit. Although she could not be healed, immediately it was close enough. The spiritual chi of heaven and earth surged and entered her body in an instant. Li Hanyan felt as if her body was submerged in a cold spring. It was cold and comfortable at the same time. She wanted to let out a weird sound, but she held it in with all her might. Her face turned red. Chu Li asked in a low voice, "How did you suffer such heavy injuries? Those guys outside." "It's not them." Li Hanyan shook her head. "I got injured while saving someone on the way." Chu Li frowned. "It must be someone extraordinary to be able to injure you so badly. A young man." Li Hanyan smiled. "He's quite an interesting guy, but I didn't bring him back to Snow Lunar Pavilion." "Oh." Chu Li gave a faint smile. "Could it be that you've fallen for him? A beauty saving a hero? How is that possible?" Li Hanyan curled her red lips and scoffed. "I don't like those stinky men." Chu Li glared at her. Li Hanyan thought to herself, "Of course, Big Brother Chu is different. I'm also a stinky man." Chu Li said snappily, "All right, hurry up and treat your injuries." "Yes." Li Hanyan smiled. She closed her eyes and channeled again. Her body was surging with a cool force that was exceptionally comfortable. She quickly calmed down, and her spirit slowly left her body. Her thoughts gradually drifted away. She did not need to direct it, as the spiritual energy automatically wrapped around her injuries. She did not know how long it took for her to wake up. When she opened her eyes, she realized that the sky was bright. It was already the morning of the next day. Chu Li was sitting cross-legged behind her. He was motionless with his eyes closed, breathing deeply. She turned her head to look at him and realized that his eyes were still closed. She stared at him curiously. She usually did not look at Chu Li so closely. Suddenly, she felt a little unfamiliar, as if she did not know him at all. But then a familiar feeling arose. His temperament was extremely unique. No one else could match him. What's wrong? Chu Li suddenly opened his eyes, startling her. She quickly turned her head away. Chu Li smiled. Is there something on my face? He knew that Li Hanyan admired him as a child. In fact, she had subtly regarded him as her father. Since her father's death, Chu Li had saved her when she was on the brink of death. He took care of her when she was at her weakest. He taught her martial arts and arranged for her future. Everything he did was like a father to his daughter. She unknowingly transferred the feelings she had for her father to Chu Li. It was almost unrelated to the relationship between a man and a woman. But he was not her biological father after all, so it was inevitable that there would be a hint of peculiarity. Li Hanyan blushed and shook her head. My injuries are healed. Thank you, Big Brother Chu. Why are you dawdling at such a crucial time? Hurry up and greet me. Chu Li said, You're forcing yourself. It's fine this time. If it weren't for that guy, I wouldn't have been injured at all. Li Hanyan shook her head. It's just a small injury. It's nothing. A small injury. Chu Li scoffed. Li Hanyan said, But I didn't expect that guy's palm energy to be so insidious. It kept acting up and getting worse. Looks like you focused too much on your swordsmanship and neglected your inner energy. Chu Li shook his head. Inner energy is also the foundation. Yes, yes. Li Hanyan quickly nodded. Big Brother Chu, do you want breakfast? I'll get it. Chu, Li said impatiently. You dislike me? Wani is miserable, responsible. Li Hanyan looked at him with a bitter face. All right, I'll listen. Chu Li scoffed. It's good that you listen. From tomorrow onwards, rearrange your schedule. Swordsmanship will take 30 minutes. 40? Li Hanyan said carefully. Chu Li frowned. 30. All right. Li Hanyan nodded helplessly. Her red lips opened and closed. Chu Li glared at her. How about 2? 3. Li Hanyan quickly smiled. Chu Li scoffed. You'll know in the future. If you don't have enough inner energy, you won't be able to use your swordsmanship no matter how powerful it is. Don't think that the swordsmanship I taught you is a trick. Yes, yes. Li Hanyan said dejectedly. Chu Li finally let her go. Did those people outside see it? Yes. Li Hanyan said, They're from the Holy Church of Light. I'll deal with them sooner or later. She was injured, so she was willing but powerless. Chapter 1232. Chu Li said, If that's the case, I won't interfere. It's up to you. Of course, Big Brother Chu, don't worry. I won't be careless. Li Hanyan smiled and said, I know Big Brother Chu is worried that I'll be too proud. There's also your martial arts. Chu Li shook his head. Since they're here, it means that they have the confidence to kill you. Yes, yes. Li Hanyan nodded hurriedly. Brother Chu is good at everything except a little gather, bihuang, silent promise welding, fence. Aluminum said stunned. Even the 4 strontium words choked, snuggled up to the Di Ru Yu, the kitchen, and sighed, Ruo Kue, evil spirits Chu. Li glared at her, waved his hand, and disappeared in a flash. Li Hanyan's smile slowly faded as she glared in the direction of the Snow Lunar Pavilion's entrance. These people from the Holy Church of Light were really persistent. They were so annoying. Unfortunately, The Holy Church of Light was much stronger than the four major sects of the Ji dynasty. They would not stop their revenge just because he had taught them a lesson and killed a few of their masters. Instead, they would become even more ruthless. Provoking them was equivalent to provoking trouble. They had to keep fighting until one side fell. No matter how he thought about it, he was the one who fell first. He was not Big Brother Chu, who could deal with an entire sect alone. She furrowed her brows and pondered for a moment. In the end, she decided that she could not go all out to kill them. Instead, she wanted to maintain a stalemate. No matter how powerful she was, it was impossible for her to defeat the entire Holy Church of Light. If she won once, they would send even more powerful masters. In the end, she would still lose. Thus, he could only hide his abilities and not show off too much. Thinking of this, she shook her head. She wondered if Brother Chu would be disappointed if he knew about her decision. He had just taught her a wonderful sword technique, but she was the first one to back out. Chu Li stood outside the snowy Moon Valley and saw Li Hanyan's thoughts. He nodded in satisfaction. She had indeed matured. If it was in the past, she would have killed without a care in the world. She wanted to kill until they were terrified. Young people were full of vigor, and it was hard to go against her nature. She didn't expect that she would be able to break away from this most instinctive reaction in such a short time. Rationality could suppress emotions, and she would not be reckless and impulsive. She could also make people feel at ease. Chu Li pondered for a moment, then disappeared in a flash. Spirit cranes peaked. The morning sun was exceptionally bright, the sky was azure, and the air was fresh and pleasant. It had just snowed in the great Ji dynasty, but it was still as warm as spring here. The fruits on the tree were getting more and more plump, and the fragrance was so rich that it permeated the entire Spirit Crane's peak. Xiao Qi and Xiao Shi were picking the fruits from the tree. They no longer picked up the ones that had fallen to the ground, and the bunches of fruits on the tree could not be finished. They ate half of it, while Xiao Shi and Xiao Qi wanted to personally brew fruit wine for the remaining half. This way, they would not have to worry about others finding out about their origins. They could also drink it often, and it would be easy to store. Li was T Li to T to him, T to Li, Li he to T to them, to them. About. Chu Li could clearly see that their center of gravity was constantly changing to offset the strong force of the strong wind. This in itself contained an extremely brilliant body technique. He complemented this method of constantly exercising with the Spirit Crane technique and gained a deeper understanding of the Spirit Crane technique. This short period of time was equivalent to studying the Spirit Crane technique assiduously for half a month. Ever since he got the Spirit Crane technique, he relied on his familiarity with the Spirit Cranes to cultivate it. He never expected the Spirit Crane technique to be so difficult. It was completely different from its name. The worst thing about the Spirit Crane technique was that it looked easy, but could not be achieved. The simpler the secret manual, the more effort it would take to cultivate it. One had to figure it out himself, just like walking a route. The key to the Spirit Crane technique was to observe the Spirit Cranes and understand the world. It required not only the movements, but also the state of mind. The former and latter were extremely difficult for people outside the 100,000 hills. Chu Li had the observation of the Spirit Cranes and was blessed by nature, but he could not understand the unique state of mind. He vaguely understood why Green Deer Cliff was so mysterious and forbade their disciples from leaving the mountain. They were using the environment of Green Deer Cliff to cultivate their state of mind and speed up the cultivation of the Spirit Crane technique. He understood that to master the Spirit Crane technique, he had to return to Green Deer Cliff. Cultivating in an environment like Green Deer Cliff was the most beneficial for the advancement of the Spirit Crane technique. more importantly, the last 3 levels of the spirit crane technique. First, observe the general idea, then understand it. That would be another world. If one did not know the final goal and only focused on cultivating, one's progress would be slow. You're not going to care about Prince Kong? Seo sure tossed a yellow fruit to him and asked, "The fairy's capital is spreading like wildfire. Everyone is talking about it. This time, Prince Kong is really famous." "The crown prince did it on purpose, didn't he?" Seo Chi asked. Chu Li said, "Our crown prince is not a generous person." Before he became the crown prince, Lung Jinghua was solemn but not harsh. After he became the crown prince, he suddenly became harsh and ruthless. Why can't he tolerate Prince Kong? Seo Chi frowned. If he can't tolerate Prince Kong, it should be Prince Bao, right? Prince Bao used to be in charge of the army, and there were still many of his old subordinates in the army. His words were very useful in the army. How could he not provoke the emperor and the crown prince? Prince Kong, on the other hand, was not the same. He was just a prince who had nothing better to do. He was well-behaved and would usually eat and drink with Prince Bao. He did not do any evil or good deeds, so it was very easy for people to overlook him. Unexpectedly, he became famous in Fairy's capital because of this matter. People were criticizing him for being ridiculous and not caring about the country. Chu Li said, "With these old men around, he'll be restrained in the future. It's better to ask him to leave before he ascends the throne and when the emperor is still on the throne. That way, he won't be criticized. If he dealt with the princes after he ascended the throne, his reputation would be affected. People would think that he was narrow-minded and could not tolerate others. It would not be good to leave a bad impression. People's hearts are too complicated." Seo Chi said, "Lu Yurong purposely caused this matter to spread like wildfire. Why did she do this? It was obvious that she had thought it through before she dared to do it. Only Lu Yurong and Chu Li could handle this matter calmly and skillfully. To others, they were powerless." Chu Li smiled. "Actually, it's very simple. As the crown prince's advisor, she only needs to consider the crown prince. The others are not important. If she offended them, then so be it." "Chu Li, you should be the secret guardian commander." Seo sure shook her head. She always felt that Chu Li was the most suitable. It was a pity to let Lu Yurong take the position. Chu Li smiled without saying a word. Chapter 1233. Chu Li frowned as he looked at the 4 black lights and shook his head. They really are courting death. Why did they come here to die? Seo sure was puzzled. "I went back to check, but there were no records. Logically speaking, they knew they couldn't defeat the spirit cranes and never succeeded. Why would they still come here to die? Maybe the spirit cranes have a grudge against them." Chu Li said. He could faintly feel their hatred. Even if they were to die, they would bite the spirit cranes. If they could bite the spirit cranes, they would die a worthy death. This might be their tradition. These spirit snakes were psychic creatures. Their intelligence was not inferior to humans. However, they were cold-blooded animals. They did not have high EQ. The only thing they had was hatred. Once they were provoked, even if they died, their companions would take revenge. They would not rest until they were dead. The spirit cranes didn't provoke them, right? Seo sure said. Chu Li shook his head. The spirit cranes like to eat their gallbladder. They ate quite a lot. I see. Seo sure nodded. Then it's no wonder they went crazy. Seo Chi said, "That's how it is. One thing feeds on another." She pulled out her sword and shook it lightly. It was like a pool of autumn water, swaying on the sword. The light became brighter and brighter. She channeled her energy into the sword, or else she would not be able to break the snake's skin. Ding 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 ding. She suddenly stepped forward and stood in front of Seo Shur. The sword lights fell on the two snakes like rain. The snakes' bodies were black and shiny like they were made of black iron. They looked soft but strong. Chu Li raised his palm and attacked. He performed the heavenly king palm. The surrounding spiritual energy was turbulent. It was the best environment for the heavenly king palm. He pushed his palm out. Suddenly, the surrounding spiritual energy was like a swallow returning to its nest. His palm energy was the nest, and the surrounding spiritual energy was the swallow. His palm energy had only been pushed out for a meter, but it had already become a huge creature. It grew rapidly, like a rolling snowball. In an instant, it had grown to the size of his body. It was shocking. He struck out with his palm again. This time, the palm force was different from before. It was gentle and soft, and after colliding with the huge palm force from before, the two palm forces rapidly shrank, going from the size of a body to the size of a fist. Their speed suddenly increased, like a flash of light. Bam, 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 bam. The two black snakes twisted their bodies, but were unable to dodge. The heavenly king palm was too fast and arrived in an instant. They tumbled in the air and gradually loosened their bodies. By the time they landed on the ground, the two snakes were motionless, as soft as mud. Chu Li let out a long sigh of relief and looked at his right palm in shock. He then looked at the two flying snakes. He knew how strong they were. They were truly invulnerable. The two black snakes in front of him that could not even withstand a single blow made him wonder if he had encountered them before. They did not seem to be invulnerable at all. Ding 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 ding. The sound of metal clashing was still ringing, like the sound of rain hitting the pipa. It was crisp and sweet, with a special rhythm. It was Seo Chi who stood in front of Seo Shur and trapped the two snakes. Her swordsmanship was exquisite. Facing the two snakes, she could only defend and attack, forcing them to be unable to hurt her. However, she could not do anything to them. Even her treasured sword could not break their bodies. These two spirit snakes were different from the ones she had encountered before. They were tougher and faster. If she was careless, she would be bitten. She dared not be careless and had to be 120% vigilant. While she was attacking fiercely, a palm force suddenly appeared and hit the two snakes. The two snakes seemed to have been hit by a huge wave. They flew out involuntarily and rolled in the air. In the end, their bodies were straightened and motionless. It was obvious that they had been shocked to death. The palm force of the heavenly king palm was powerful and overbearing. Chu Li suddenly laughed out loud. Seo Shur ran to the side of the two spirit snakes and used a dry branch to poke them. She found that they were indeed dead. Seo Chi quickly went to her side and glared at her. Seo Shur said, "Younger sister, you are still far from Chu Li?" Seo Chi looked at her angrily. "Second sister, are you trying to drive a wedge between us? Looks like you won't be able to catch up to him." Seo Shur smiled. "From what I see, you shouldn't secretly exert your strength. Just follow behind him obediently. What's the point of wasting your energy? I like to cultivate." Seo Chi was unconvinced. Chu Li pulled out his long sword, but he could not cut the snake's skin. This time, the snake was stronger than before. He then sheathed his sword and began to practice the first form of the universe. He accumulated some of the unique inner energy of the first form of the universe and channeled it into his sword. Suddenly, his sword force became sharper and easily cut open the snake's skin. He took out the snake gallbladders and gave two to Seo Shur. The remaining one was shared with Seo Chi. Seo Shur bitterly swallowed it and sighed, "This thing is so disgusting. I'm glad you guys can resist it." Seo Chi said, I won't give it to you next time. Seosher smiled. You can't bear to? Shuli said, this time the snake's skin is excellent. Take it back and sew it well. Yes, leave it to me, Seosher said. Let's go. It's dangerous here, Seochi said. Shuli shook his head. You guys go back first. I need to think about it. What are you thinking about? Seosher asked. Seochi pulled her sleeve. All right, you think about it, Seosher said. Shuli hugged their waists and disappeared in a flash. He sent them back to the imperial residence of King and then came back in a flash. He stood at his previous position and thought about the previous situation. So this was the Heavenly King palm. Although he had discovered it before, it did not have such a strong effect. It seemed that the thicker the spiritual energy, the stronger the effect. It was really scary. The Heavenly King palm could actually be performed outside of Hills Sherwan. What if he created an environment similar to Hills Sherwan? He disappeared and appeared on his own island in the High Duke's public house. Xue Ling was practicing the crescent palm. She was dressed in a green outfit and was full of youthfulness. She was cold and quiet. It was as if there was a layer of cold air around her. Shuli suddenly said, "Take this." Xue Ling took the opportunity to counter with her palm. Her crescent palm was at its peak. Her chi flow was smooth and smooth. Her whole body was unobstructed, and she felt unspeakably refreshed. She felt invincible and could destroy anything with one palm. She did not hold back and struck with her palm. Bang! She was sent flying. It was as if there was a rope pulling her from behind. She hit the wall of the courtyard. Xue Ling opened her red lips and looked at him in surprise. Shuli smiled. How is my palm energy? What a strong palm energy, Xue Ling said helplessly, but it's so overbearing. She felt that her crescent palm was hit back at her. It was extremely strong and overbearing. Fortunately, she had eaten many spirit pills and rare items. Her body was unusually strong and tough. That was why she was not injured. Shuli smiled. I only used half of my palm energy. What palm technique? Heavenly King palm. Too bad you can't cultivate it. Shuli shook his head. Your crescent palm is strong enough. Yes, Xue Ling nodded. Chapter 1234. Master, come again. Xue Ling scoffed. Her inner energy had become more and more refined. She was no longer as vulnerable as before. Although she was sent flying by his palm, she might be able to take it if she was prepared next time. It was a rare opportunity to spar with him. Bam, 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 bam. Xue Ling was sent flying again and again. Shuli struck with his palm. The Heavenly King's palm was not powerful. It was disappointing. At the same time, he used the life and death scripture to mobilize spiritual energy. Spiritual energy from all directions surged and instantly enveloped the Heavenly King's palm. Thus, the Heavenly King's palm transformed and devoured the spiritual energy ferociously. In the blink of an eye, it was completely devoured. The spiritual energy from the life and death scripture did not seem to be able to feed it in time. The Heavenly King's palm flew 3 to 4 meters before it expanded several times to the size of his body. Shuli's second palm followed. The two palm energies merged and suddenly condensed into the size of a fist. It collided with Xue Ling's palm. Xue Ling could not resist this palm energy at all. She was like a sheep that was hit by a galloping horse. She was sent flying. The power of the Heavenly King's palm had increased tenfold under the support of spiritual energy. It was terrifying. In terms of toughness and dominance, it was better than any other palm technique he had cultivated. It was no wonder that the Heavenly King's palm could dominate the world during the era of many enlightened masters. Now that he had the Heavenly King's palm, His strength had increased tremendously. As he grew stronger, he felt that his martial arts was not enough. There was always someone better. Everyone he met was stronger than him. This made him feel helpless. This was luck. He had high hopes for the heavenly king's palm. Unfortunately, he was disappointed when he cultivated it. Without spiritual energy, the heavenly king's palm was like water without a source. He had been using the life and death scripture to channel spiritual energy, to aid in the cultivation of the heavenly king's palm. However, he did not know that the heavenly king's palm did not require spiritual energy to cultivate, but rather it was needed when it was used. Xue Ling was sent flying again and again, but every time she would pounce on Xue Ling again and again. Her emerald green clothes were stained with mud. Her jade-like face was also stained with some grass. She lost some of her coldness and suddenly had the aura of a pretty daughter from a humble family. Her understanding of the crescent palm deepened, and she learned a lot. With a master who could help her unleash her full strength and point out her weaknesses, her cultivation would be twice the result with half the effort. The two of them practiced for more than 2 hours. Xue Ling had no idea how many times she had fallen. Again and again, he was already numb from the fall. All he knew was to get up and continue attacking. Finally, Chuli waved his hand and stopped. "Let's stop here for today." "Master, please continue." "I can do it," Xue Ling quickly said. Chuli waved his hand. "Don't rush for quick results. You can't get fat in one go. You have to take it step by step to have a solid foundation." All right. Xue Ling was infatuated with the feeling of improving at every moment. Chuli smiled at her and suddenly disappeared. The next moment, he appeared in Gale City and returned to his house. He sat on his bed and continued to cultivate. Ding Weijie was like a sword that was placed right in front of his throat and could pierce through at any moment. It was an extremely unpleasant feeling. It was already sunset. Chuli sat on his bed and used the omniscient mirror to observe the area within a 10-mile radius. Not far away, Gale Branch was bustling with activity as everyone was cultivating in the courtyard. Chuli was delighted to see this. He suddenly felt a little envious of these people. They could just cultivate all day long. Apart from cultivating, they did not have to worry about anything else as long as they followed orders. Their minds were pure, and their cultivation progressed very quickly. Their lives were simple and happy. They were not like him, who calculated all day long. His mind was as fast as lightning, and the number of calculations he had made was equivalent to half a lifetime for an ordinary person. If these innocent and happy members of the association were to be harmed by Ding Weijie, he would feel guilty. That was why he had to stay here and prevent Ding Weijie from killing anyone. The saint, Sun Mingyue, had promised to send top-notch masters to deal with Ding Weijie. However, Chuli was not at ease. Ding Weijie was well-versed in divination. How could she not have predicted this? It should not be difficult for her to hide from the masters of the Holy Church of Light using divination. It should not be difficult for her to predict his location either. If she did not care about the loss of her lifespan and recklessly sought revenge on him, it would be a great disaster. He might not be able to overcome this obstacle. She did not have to say much. She only said that he had several identities. This sentence would arouse Sun Mingyue's suspicion. With Sun Mingyue's ability, it would be easy for her to find out about his background. She had not found out until now, because she did not expect it. She did not expect it because he had been trying his best to hold her gaze and not let her think in that direction. No matter what, Zhao Dai's character and appearance could not be linked to his original identity. They were two completely different people. As he was thinking about this, his expression suddenly changed. He saw an old woman slowly walking towards Gale Branch with a basket in her hand. She was trembling as she walked towards the main entrance. There were 2 huge stone lions placed at the main entrance of Gale Branch. 2 energetic young men with sharp and threatening eyes stood on both sides of the stone lions. Their eyes were like lightning. They were innate masters. Although they were not perfected, they were not far from it. It was rare to see them at their age. After all, people like him, Fa Yuan, and Lu Yurong were rare. Otherwise, they would not have been so famous. A skinny young man stepped forward and blocked the old woman. "Madam, this is Gale Branch. Unrelated people are not allowed to enter. I'm looking for someone." The old woman was clean and neat. It could be seen that she was a beauty when she was young. Her facial features were good, but her skin was loose and wrinkled. Even so, she did not look ugly. She had a unique temperament. "Who is it?" The other chubby young man chuckled and asked. "Let me see if I know him." "Zhao Dai," the old woman said. "Zhao, branch leader Zhao." The 2 young men were stunned. The old woman nodded. "It's this young man." The 2 young men asked carefully, "Are you branch leader Zhao's?" "Oh, I'm from his hometown." The old woman sighed and shook her head. "I didn't expect this young man to be so successful, even though he has no parents. I'm here to take a look." The 2 of them were in a difficult position. If they did not let her in, it would be against the rules. After all, she was from the branch leader's hometown. She might even be a relative. If they let her in, it would be against the rules. After all, she did not have any proof. What if she was a bad person? The 2 of them looked at the old woman carefully. They could tell that the old woman did not know martial arts. Moreover, she was trembling. She did not look like a threat. All right, you can go in and take a look," the skinny young man said softly. "But the branch leader is busy. He might not be here." "He's not here." The old woman frowned. She hesitated and did not want to go in. At that moment, Ko Chiong strode over and was about to enter the door. The 2 young guards bowed respectfully and told him about the old woman. Ko Chiong looked at the old woman and frowned. If he said there was something wrong, he could not sense anything. If he said there was nothing wrong, he felt that it was strange and inappropriate. There was something wrong, but it seemed like the old woman felt that there was nothing wrong. "How about this?" Ko Chiong smiled. "The branch leader is not here. If he comes back, I'll ask him to look for you." He decided to trust his instincts and not let the old woman enter the branch. You're tuning in to the Mystic Fist YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.